Okay, so we have everyone on except Councillor Solda is just logging on. So we will, and the YouTube stream is going. So we will call our regular meeting of council to order and recognize first that we are holding our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Sechot and Huipachesset First Nations. We have an agenda in front of us. Councillors, are there any late items to add to the agenda? Seeing none, any late items from the city clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a lead item for Council's consideration under H4, correspondence from Mr. Roland Smith as it relates to the city staff report regarding debt.
Thank you very much. We will add that in. And with that, would somebody like to move approval of our agenda?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Corbeil, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have minutes from the special meeting of council held at 9:30 a.m. on November 16th, 2020, the special meeting of council held at 10:30 a.m. and the regular meeting of council held at 2 p.m. on November 23rd, 2020, and the special meeting of council held at 9:30 a.m. on November 30th, 2020. Would somebody like to move adoption?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Poon. Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to submit input on topics of relevance to City Council. A maximum of 4 speakers or submissions will be accommodated and either read out loud or members of the public are able to participate themselves. And I see we have one member of the public popping up. So I will go first to Chris Alberni.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I just have a short statement, so I'll just make that and then that'll be it. Today, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me first. You'll have in your package a letter about a resolution that I'd like you to hopefully bring to the AVICC and the UBCM. So I'll just speak a little to that, and that'll be my input. So the CERB that we all know tried to get money directly into the pockets of anyone put out of work by the pandemic. We all know by now that even the CERB left out a lot of people, including those with disabilities or who had unstable or no work before the pandemic, and even small business owners, students, and other groups. A universal basic income or a guaranteed livable income is like CERB, but it covers everyone with no exceptions when they need it. So the resolution I'm asking that you bring forward in the letter urges the province of BC to bring in a guaranteed livable universal basic income, or UBI for short. UBIs have been successful across Canada and the world. Groups you would expect to think alike are all sort of advocating for it. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, business leaders, CEOs, Conservative, Liberal, NDP, Green politicians, and social activists have all been active on UBI. There's huge savings in bureaucracy and benefits to be had for citizens and communities that can be lifted out of poverty. I was just actually on a webinar this weekend where people from the Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis and a former Conservative Senator, Hugh Segal, talked about a new study on UBI and its implications for Canada. The study indicated UBI could deliver $400 billion to GDP, 600,000 jobs to the Canadian economy within the first 5 years, and it would grow the Canadian economy by $80 billion per year. It would do all of this while also lifting the bottom 60% of Canadians would see their disposable income increase by $122 billion a year. So it's a huge program and would make an amazing difference to cities like ours. Imagine if every person or family in Port Alberni right now who's in poverty or homeless was guaranteed an income of $25,000 to $30,000 a year. Would that change their life? Would that change our city? Imagine if every business owner knew that their employees and them would have that kind of backstop in these kinds of hard times. It would change a lot, and that's why I think it would be important for cities like Port Alberni to start advocating for this policy, both for them as cities and for the social safety societies that operate within them. So that's all. I have much more I could say, but I've taken enough of your time. And if you do need any more information or have any questions, I'm more than happy to provide that now or anytime. So please take the resolution to the UBCM and to AVICC, and please support it. And that's my input for today. Thank you.
Sorry, Ron, did you have a quick question?
Please take the resolution.
Hello.
Looks like Chris is gone, but I'm just curious, in other countries and in other areas of the world that have already instituted this, I'm just curious kind of what the funding model would be.
Sorry, Ron, did you have a quick question?
A program like this.
I don't know who I'm speaking to.
I'm just curious. Paulson speaking to Chris Alberni.
Am I still on the line now?
Right. Yeah, if we have somebody else on the line waiting for public input, if you could just pause and mute yourself if you don't mind, and we'll get to you in a moment. I think we're hearing some background here. And go ahead, Chris, if you want to respond to Councillor Paulson.
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Paulson. Yeah, no, that's certainly, I think, where the sort of political and ideological questions pop up, is how to fund it. Right. So if you look on the business side, it's very often looked upon as a way of you gather that revenue from higher income earners, not necessarily high corporate tax, something like that. Whereas other societies will be looking at it for getting it from revenue from corporate tax or something like that. So that's really where the debate is. But both sides agree that the policy is really solid. And like you said, it's been tried in a lot of different jurisdictions all over the world and in Canada, with a ton of success. And it reduces the costs of bureaucracy. It reduces the costs of actually things like homeless shelters. They did a study in Vancouver where they gave people a set amount of money, and it actually, they found out, this was just in the summer, they found out that the amount they gave the people was less than if they had been in a homeless shelter and society had to pay that price instead. So it actually turned out to be less costly to just give the people money, and they were able to manage it well and improve their lives and do it that way. So definitely the ways to fund it is where the debate will be. That's the question that'll be for politicians for sure.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, and thanks, Chris, for coming on. City Clerk, it sounds like we might have multiple people on waiting for public input. Could you let me know who our next speaker is?
Yes, next for public input is Mr. Neil Anderson. And we'll just confirm he's on.
Have multiple people on.
Yep, he is there. Mr. Anderson?
Yes, next for public input is Mr. Neil Anderson. And we'll just confirm.
I'm wondering if Neil is possibly watching online and listening, because this has happened to us before where we're hearing this feedback of our meeting a minute ago.
Yes, perhaps council would like to move on, and we will engage with Mr. Anderson offline and have him speak later on in the meeting.
Sure. Is there another speaker, or is it just Mr. Anderson?
It was just Mr. Alberni and Mr. Anderson at public input.
Okay, even if we can connect him for after our delegations, that would work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we will move on to our delegations, and number one, our 25-year Employee Recognition Awards. And I will introduce Chief Mike Owens. We have that background noise again. Introduce Chief Mike Owens to present the 25-year award to Randy Thoen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, today we celebrate Captain Randy Thone's 25 years of service with Port Alberni Fire Department. So on November 3rd, 1995, Fire Chief Geddes sent a letter to Randy Thone congratulating him on his new career with Port Alberni Fire Department. November 16th, 1995 was Randy's first day of orientation, and by January 1996, he had joined B Shift as a probationary firefighter. Prior to coming to Port Alberni, Randy was a member of the Canadian Forces in the Navy. I guess he must have felt like he owed the sea something after just a few months after becoming a first-class firefighter. He gifted the Pacific Ocean his portable radio as it became dislodged from his belt while boarding the fireboat. By his 5th anniversary, Randy was already preparing himself to teach others by taking an instructor's techniques workshop with the first responder program. Randy has continued to train firefighters and chiefs for that matter ever since. By the end of 2000, Randy was indicating his career path as he had completed his Fire Officer 1 program, and he was awarded the position of acting captain on October 6th, 2004. In 2011, Randy transitioned into the Chief Fire Prevention Officer role. Randy took on this high-profile role with enthusiasm and was known to be firm but fair on issues pertaining to fire safety. Randy must have left quite the impression, as I still have people asking me today how the fire chief, Randy, is doing. Randy took his opportunity in the fire prevention office to educate many, from students to seniors, in fire safety. He also proved himself to be an excellent fire investigation with many fire scenes under his belt. In 2017, Captain Thone returned to suppression as the captain of D Shift, where he continues to lead today. In this role, Randy has shown himself to be an excellent incident commander, though he does seem to attract more than his fair share of structure fires and other challenging emergency incidents. Over the past 25 years, Randy has held positions of probationary firefighter, first-class firefighter, breathing air technician, pool captain, acting captain, Chief Fire Prevention Officer, and shift captain. Randy has also served the department as co-chair of the Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee until earlier this year. He contributed greatly to the development of our initial plan in reaction to the pandemic. Randy was also instrumental in bringing the UBC Heart Health study to Port Alberni Fire Department, which has both acute and long-term positive effects on the health of our firefighters. Randy also continues to give his own time for a long list of community and charitable work. Captain Thone, my sincerest gratitude for all that you have given the Port Alberni Fire Department and the City of Port Alberni over the past 25 years. Please accept this watch as a token of our collective appreciation. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Patterson for the presentation of the watch.
Thank you, Chief. And as he said, I'll present this watch on behalf of the city to you, and my great thanks for making my time here very enjoyable and rewarding.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and thanks, Chief, Madam Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for this award. It's hard to believe that 25 years has gone by this quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Randy, for all your work that you've done for the city. And this is so strange doing this, and I see councillors silently clapping in the background. So strange doing it in this format instead of having you at a council meeting at City Hall. But we do thank you for all that you've contributed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess at this time, a little patience and understanding goes a long ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councillor Paulson, did you have a comment?
Well, just congratulations, Randy, and just I really want to thank you for the job that you've done, but also I want to thank you so much for your outreach in the community over the years, whether it be with the Black Sheep Rugby Club or various other organizations that you've been involved with. You're a great citizen, both on and off the job. So thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you. Okay. That is just one 25-year employee recognition this year. So thanks again, Randy, and thank you, Chief Owens, for presenting. So we will move on to our next delegation. So next up, item number 2, we have Bill Collette from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce to present the new website and an update on the 2020 Mclean Mill operations. And you're just muted still, Bill.
There we go. Sorry.
There we go.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. And just to clarify, with 10 minutes, I may not get to the website, but we'll try. So I wanted to start with just thanking Council for sticking with things through 2020. I know it was a challenging year for everybody, and certainly Council is no exception. And the Mclean Mill, of course, is a forever sort of challenge, if you will. About a year ago, we presented to Council our proposal to operate the commercial activities at the Mclean Mill. And when we did so, we identified 4 areas of business, primarily 4. And since then, we added a 5th. So those 5 areas are and were events, the campground, food services, the gift shop, and tours. The latter being the one that was sort of identified post-application, and it's an area that we think has exceptional opportunity. When we presented the numbers in the package, again, this was pre-COVID, pre-bubble world, if you will, when bubbles were things that kids used with magic wands and dish detergent. The numbers we came up with was $40,000 for events, which was a very conservative estimate. The campground, we predicted about $38,000. The food services, again, I think we went very conservative with $33,750. The tours and other things we just put in at $10,000 because we hadn't really thought too much about that one. And then the gift shop, we figured the gift shop would be $39,500 for total revenue projection in 2020 of $161,250. And then, of course, as I mentioned, COVID hit, and we were like everybody else. We're all in the same boat. It was a very much a challenge. So how did we fare this year? And I'm sorry I don't have anything physical to give you right now. I'm reluctant to do that until the year is actually complete. I want to make sure that everything is fully accurate. So I'm doing my best now based on where we were at by about the end of November. And when I point out how we did in 2020, I want to mention that, in the spring, well, we had no spring. Everything was shut down in the spring. The visitor center, as example, the place that welcomes people to Port Alberni, we were shut for 100 days and 27% of the year. So of course that migrated out to Mclean Mill. We just didn't have the visits. So most of our areas of business just did not perform. But the bright light has been and still is the gift shop. We didn't have near the open hours we predicted, but our reports right now through our SAGE program indicates that as of the end of November, our gift shop was at 41% of our projected revenues, which when you really think about it is pretty good based on being closed 100 days, based on limited visits to the site, et cetera, et cetera. I should also point out that our busiest day before December in the gift shop was on November 14th. Busier on November 14th than we were all summer. Higher sales. Our next biggest sales day to November 14th was a week later. And I point that out because we weren't even thinking about November when we put our proposal together. So our gift shop has really done well. People really enjoy it. And it is a beautiful gift shop. And now we hit December. December, we had originally planned and hoped that we would have some sort of outdoor style event, the Heritage Light Up program. We had about 350 people register, and unfortunately we had to cancel those plans. And that was really disappointing for all of us and for the 350 people that had signed up. And by the way, that was only in about a week. But we carried on with lighting up the place. 4 of us primarily worked out there for a few weeks, putting the lights up. And so we lighted up most nights, and we changed our gift shop open hours to 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We took a bit of a risk on that because, you know, most stores are open during the day, but we decided to go 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the results have been spectacular. Putting it into perspective, this past Saturday night, our sales will have contributed more than $100 to the heritage fee, which you all know is based at 10% of sales. Yesterday in the slush, and not a very pleasant day, we contributed another $50 to the heritage fee. And speaking of the heritage fee, in September, we provided a check to the city for just over $2,500 that we had collected through the summer. And again, far less than we would have normally hoped, but still a $2,500 check that went to the city. Right now, our books are showing just under 1,000, but again, that's just into November, so it doesn't have December sales in there, and even later November. So I expect that we'll have another check for, probably won't be 2,500, but it may not be far off of that. So overall, our heritage fee contributions have been good, especially based on COVID. And I'm not sure if council's aware of the fact that because we run the gift shop at the Mclean Mill, and because we run a gift shop here at the Visitor Center, and because some of the product moves from site to site, we recognize that we also had to install the heritage fee here at the Visitor Center. And so we've done that. And of course, our numbers here at the Visitor Center are way down, substantially down. So we're not very busy right now. But once we get to a post-COVID world, I wouldn't be surprised that just through the Visitor Center, not even the Mclean Mill, that we will be contributing upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 a year to the heritage fee via the Visitor Center contract. And again, that's because we're connected to the Mclean Mill. So I wanted you to understand that the heritage fee is something we're really proud of, and that we think it's got huge potential. And so far since we've been open, I'm aware of 2 complaints about the heritage fee. And in both cases, we were able to, you know, relay the information to the customer as to why we were doing it, and in both cases they accepted and understood. But other than that, no, you know, people are totally accepting of it, which quite frankly for me is a bit surprising, because I thought it was I thought we might be pushing the envelope a bit there, but clearly people want to help us out. So we're on track. You know, I think we've done reasonably well based on the COVID situations. Our financials right now and our projected financials for the end of the year will show, I think, about a $3,000 loss on operations based on the money that the city has contributed and our revenues. I didn't want to lose money, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's bad. I'm comfortable even going to our board and saying that, you know, it looks like we've lost about $3,000. The flip side to that is that we're also carrying about 15,000 worth of inventory. That, you know, from a cash flow perspective, that's a challenge. That inventory is sitting on the shelves, but that inventory will also translate into sales at some point in the future. So, you know, I think overall our finances have been well managed, and they are strong. And we're certainly not asking the city for any extra money, not at all, and nor do we ever intend to. I should point out that one of the reasons we've been able to access inventory value is through the SEBA program, the Emergency Business Account. So we access that under the Chamber umbrella, and that has allowed us to carry even more inventory than we initially thought we would have. Should point out that the city also in your budget for 2020 had provided us with access to $40,000 for use for unknown expenses relating to 2019. And this is because of weddings and such that were booked in 2019. And that money wasn't in our bank account, wasn't in the city's bank account. So deposits, et cetera. And nobody knew what was outstanding. We have so far paid out just over $10,000 to wedding couples that unfortunately had to cancel. And we have about $12,000 that we believe is still owing for weddings that have been pushed forward to 2021. So a week or so ago, we presented the city with an invoice of just over $10,000 to recover our costs from 2020. The $12,000 is sort of sitting there in the unknown area, which translates to about $18,000 left over of the 40, which I would encourage the city to use outside of us. Perhaps use it for ALR, you know, request that we still encourage the city to consider. So there is approximately $18,000 available. For the future, for 2021, we're really hoping we can continue along this path. We think we've demonstrated a good, viable commercial operation. We think all 5 areas of business are viable and strong. We think that in the future, we will be less and less reliant on the city, perhaps unreliant at some point in the future. And I'm prepared to go out on the hook right now and say that the $12,000 that we know is payable to others in 2021 and when I say payable, it's deposits received by somebody, not us, that we're going to have to make good on one way or the other in 2021. I'm prepared to say to the city that if you're able to and willing to work with us next year, that we would absorb that as long as we maintain the current level of funding, which I'm really saying is we'll inherit that $12,000. So we'll be starting off in the red. So I'm prepared to do that if the city is prepared to carry on this good path that I think we're on. And, you know, with that, I think, you know, I'll maybe end with one other point. Our leader out at Mclean Mill now is Anita Sutherland, who I think most of you probably know. And we haven't come up with a title for Anita. So I'm just going to refer to her as director of everything. And Anita loves what she's doing out there. And as a matter of fact, I have a hard time keeping her away. She's constantly out there, dragging her husband out and her daughters out as well. So we're getting 4 or 5 for the price of 1. And so that's very beneficial. And I'd like to read a paragraph of a note that she wrote recently that sort of describes maybe how others feel about Mclean Mill. And so this is a quote from her writing to me. First off, let me be honest in saying that I was ignorant. Before working at Mclean Mill, I didn't get it. Sure, the place is pretty. It's the best place in Port Alberni to take photos, provide a stunning backdrop for weddings, has incredible potential for trail hiking and mountain biking, is the ideal spot for corporate retreats, and in the midst of COVID is one of the safest outdoor getaways for locals and tourists. But I am embarrassed to say that I didn't really get it. I didn't understand or appreciate the local historical significance, nor what that meant in terms of tourism, end quote. So that's what Anita said, as a woman who grew up and has resided in Port Alberni, I believe, all of her life. So last, I invite you to take a look at our website. I'm not going to crowd your time here today, mcleanmill.ca. It is a new professionally developed website. It's beautiful. We're very pleased with it, developed by the same people that helped us out with our Better by Port Alberni program, which, by the way, is translating to a lot of online sales for us with Mclean Mill. I'll field any questions.
That's great. Thanks very much, Bill. And I'll just say, first of all, that I love your Better by Port Alberni site and just the initiative, and really thank you for taking that on, because I know it's made a huge difference for businesses in the first wave of COVID, and even more so now with Christmas time. So I know that was a big initiative to take on, but thanks for doing it. I think it's really kept a lot of businesses going.
Thank you.
I'll go first to Councillor Solda and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Bill, for your report. I'm looking forward to seeing your financial report at the end of the day, at the end of the year anyways. But I have a question about the weddings. Now, the 2020 weddings, that's the ones that were booked in 2019. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and that I know about council doing that. So the 2021 weddings, is that also the 2019 bookings and that we have to pay back?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, Councillor Solda. So a lot of the weddings that we ended up canceling in 2020 rebooked for 2021. So the deposits they'd previously paid remain on the books as money owed. And if I can qualify one thing, by the way, and I want to applaud the city for supporting this, there was a lot of public feedback early in the pandemic about places that canceled weddings and didn't give them their deposits back. We looked very good by doing that. And in turn, the city looked good by doing that. Everybody got every nickel back that they had invested. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So just a quick question. So the money that when it was given as a deposit went on the books as a deposit, but they used it as part of their budget in 2019, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't involved in 2019, right. So what happened to the money, we don't know. It didn't get to our bank account, so but we had to make good on it, and that's where the 40.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Washington, and then Councillor Poon.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. I just want to say that the real focus right now in our community is trying to buy local. And I do know of a lot of people have gone to your gift shop at Mclean Mill and bought Christmas gifts because you have some really unique and different things out there. And I saw on your Facebook page this morning that you have a red and black flannel plaid shirt that would look absolutely fabulous on Doug. So I'm heading out there tomorrow to buy one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, Bill, just to let you know, your website is very easy to navigate. I showed a picture of a lumberjack creeper for our granddaughter to my wife, and I think she cashed out about $200 later. So good for you. And on a personal note, I was hinted with something else, and to Anita, and you, very helpful woman. You're lucky to have her, but congratulations on the website. Very easy to navigate and a good way to shop local. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
Congratulations for keeping the place open under the circumstances, and I'm glad you're not here asking for money.
No, I'm not. Although I certainly appreciated Councillor Washington making the purchase. So that's the way we can maybe get the money, and Councillor Haggard doing the same thing. By the way, we're not open till Thursday, and then we're open Thursday through till Christmas Eve every evening. So yeah, hopefully you can come out there and yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay. Well, Bill, thanks for coming on. And I know it has been an incredibly challenging year to take over, coming in right before COVID. You guys have done a fantastic job of keeping the place going and bringing people out there for new reasons. So well done.
Thank you very much, Council. And if I don't see you before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You as well. Okay. And item number 3 for our delegation, we have Ashok Sharma, president of the Sri Sanatan Durham Society, Alberni Temple, requesting council to provide property tax exemption for their property at 4332 Scott Street. And I am very sorry if I messed up the pronunciation there. We will turn it over to you. Oh, and I think you're just muted still. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes, thank you, welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to our concern here from our Hindu temple. We are a society of a few families in town, and we cannot afford this new tax. I sent my last 3 years financial statements. You guys can see how much money we have, because we only have a membership of what 15 families, and 2 other churches in town, or 6 temples. They help us out to run this place. As you can see, we need lots of work here still, but we just do little bit at a time. The lot we have outside, I don't know if you can see it from here. We use it for kids' plays and picnics. It's just we don't use it for any commercial or anything whatsoever. So as my other member, Nishatar Singh, you can tell them to leave.
Hello. That's all we can say, because a very small community we can't afford. So please, if you can, yeah, please no tax.
Oh yeah, that's the our income is not there to afford that, the city tax. It's just happened first time. We've been here for last so many years, over 20 years. This is the first time it happened, and we just got caught here, especially this year, or any year for that matter. I'll go out and show you the property outside, what we're talking about here.
Madam Mayor, I don't have a view of the property outside. Does anybody else? But he's
Yeah.
showing us?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I can see.
Yes. That's it's just there's nothing commercial here. Just it's all for church use. That's all we do. This is we have a small Shiva temple in here in this place. These people come here. You can see it's all just worship. We come here, we worship, we meditate, and our seniors they teach kids. So that's basically.
Thank you very much for showing us. City Clerk, I'm wondering if you could provide some additional background on this so that council can have an understanding. I believe that this is probably one of the few properties impacted by our permissive tax exemption changes where only for churches and worship areas, only the building plus half an acre is tax exempt. So I'm wondering if we could have, this property is obviously larger than half an acre, and therefore the surrounding bare land outside of that is incurring taxes now where it hasn't before. I'm wondering if we could have an understanding of the amounts of land and the amounts of taxes that are being incurred this year. or if it makes more sense for us to request that information as a follow-up to this meeting, we could do that also.
Yes, Madam Mayor, you summarized that correctly. So I'm not sure if our Director of Finance would have the breakdown readily at hand. So perhaps more appropriate in the new year to provide that information to Council.
Thank you. Would you be able to give us just a bit of understanding on permissive tax exemptions generally? Because I believe the deadline for us to be able to make changes has passed.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's correct. So there is an application process where the city does invite applicants and those that have received exemptions in the past to renew their application. The deadline for usually that the city asks for that is the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. And then tax exemptions need to be considered and granted by Council no later than October 31st of each year to be effective the following year.
Okay, thank you. Council, does anyone have any questions of the delegation? Councillor Solda.
So my question may be not for the delegations, but I know with some changes in the past, and it might have changed since I was on last, you have to use it for the specific reason, which in this case, a church. But anything like a parking lot would be taxable. So is this correct still? No.
So we just use just church purpose, just for the church purpose. Our kids go picnic outside, and our seniors, they meditate and yoga outside with the kids. They teach our just religious ceremonies outside, because most of our ceremonies are done outside as a Hindu ceremonies.
Okay.
So that's what we use it for. Like you guys, I like to invite the council anytime next function if we have after COVID times, and you guys welcome to come, and we would love you guys to come and participate and just be with us. And this Hindu religion is not one religion. We worship everything and every god, and no, we respect everybody.
I think I've been in your church before, Madam Mayor. So we're going to get a report on this situation, but can we change it? We can't change it now, can we? It's a little late, isn't it? Or how does that work?
We can't change it for this year because the deadline has passed. So we can look at changes for going forward. So I would say that we start with getting some background information in terms of, how much money we're talking about in the policy and how many properties are impacted rather than just the one specific property, and go from there. I would thank you for bringing the issue to us. Sometimes when we make changes to our policy, there are unintended consequences, and it helps for us to get an understanding of the organizations that are impacted.
I sent last 3 years financial statements. They should be attached to our request there, if you have it for the city council.
Thank you. We don't have them in our council agenda, but staff do have them available for us.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil, did you have a comment?
I have a question, just for clarity, Ashok. The issue, you have never applied for a property tax exemption before, have you?
We always have. This is the very first year this happened to us. Our last 20 years, we've been applying and getting the exemption. Something happened this year. I don't know what happened. I don't remember receiving any letter or anything from the city, but we apply every year and we do get exemption.
So it's just the level of exemption that has changed this year. So the bulk of the property and the building are exempt still, and there's a portion of the land that is not exempt this year. So I'd like council to have the information on how much money that is and how much land and all of that information so that we can go forward. We don't have that in front of us today. So I would suggest we take this information and we await a report with further details so that we can review possibly the policy as a whole rather than just one specific application. Are there other questions from council? Okay, well, Ashok, thank you very much for coming on and for showing us your property. And I'm sure that when COVID times are over, we would all be thrilled to get out of our houses and come down and enjoy one of your gatherings. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Councillor. And please, when you make any decision, just don't take us at par with other churches. Like it's a very, very small community in town.
Yeah.
And we can only afford to be here if we have no expenses like that. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, before we move on to our next item, are we able to get Mr. Anderson on, or were we able to connect with him?
Yes, you are.
Hi, Mr. Anderson. You can go ahead for your public input whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this is public input, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you for making that adjustment. Appreciate it. I'm bringing up one of your less favorite issues for probably the last time in a while, but I need to make a few comments regarding probably one of the best kept secrets in recent history by a city council. And I want to. This is question period, so I don't think anyone has to recuse themselves. No. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm turning my TV off. And the owner of the Kingsway Hotel it came to our town claiming she was an experienced renovator of various older buildings in Vancouver, and I'm sure she has done that too. After much publicity regarding the plans to renovate the Kingsway Hotel, publicity in our local media sources, the renovation started well over 2 years ago. The owner was who shortly became a city council member did not adhere to the very expectations that city council expects of other developers and property owners. Example, Erevo Hotel and the discussions over the train station, etc. No permits were taken out by the owner or subtrades, and no inspections of work were done that took place. The city has claimed that they were not always aware if permits were required, or in some cases, the building inspector stated that they were not aware of renovations taking place. This is not impossible. This is impossible. That even the bylaw officer knew when I checked on the permits that there was nothing happening. And there's evidence that I'd just love to talk about one day. Over 10 months later, I'm still waiting for simple answers to legitimate questions. The only issue I'm aware city has done was insist permits were applied for and taken out. That was 2 years after the project started, and 90% of it was complete. And according to WorkSafe, Helen maintained all work inside was complete. This was not true, and when WorkSafe was provided with some information, they reopened the case, and the stop work orders ensued. Soon after WorkSafe put their stop work on the projects, city seemed to rush down, and an hour later they put their stop work orders on. So finally some action. When I met with the mayor and Tim Ply, I expressed my concerns to deal with my questions in a low-profile manner, as I thought it was the appropriate thing to do and the fair thing to do for Ms. Poon. At this meeting, Mr. Ply mentioned if this was brought up at the city council meeting, it would reflect on the city council, and this input council was extended privileges to council members that were not extended to the general public. My response at that meeting was, yes, that is why I am here. These efforts, as I've mentioned before, were a waste of my time. About a month ago, our mayor designated Mr. Ply to respond to my questions. This was after 9 months. This was passed down to another staff member who did call me in an effort to get a better understanding of the issues. And we've never talked since then. A month later, no response. In conclusion, this no longer is an issue with Helen Poon, but an issue with City Council. Over 10 months, and the city has done everything to keep this out of the public eye. To City Council, to my knowledge, not once in 10 months has any council member asked a single question on this issue, not one single question, or given any legitimacy to my concerns. I'm no longer interested in being ignored by my elected council. I will deal with this down my own road and my own time. I just want to finalize by reminding what was told to me when I met in February with Mayor Minions and Tim Ply, in order to resolve this in a lower profile manner, not having to bring it to council members. I still haven't a response from either one of them on that meeting, late February. So I just remember what was said at that meeting when I reach out to them. If this is brought up at a city council meeting, it may suggest that city council was extending special privileges to council members. And I turned around and said, yes, I know. That's why we're here. Now I'm convinced that you were protecting Councillor Poon. He even suggested she recuse herself. I talked to Councillor Poon, which I'm glad she did call me. But and I said at that time, my problem is not now with Councillor Poon. My problem with City Council and how they've hid this from the public. This was a huge issue. And WorkSafe did put the stop first, and they found asbestos there. I don't think the public know that. How much they found, I don't know, but they had their tents up and they removed it. And it's a subsequent survey confirmed the presence of asbestos-containing materials in the building. The firm failed to ensure a qualified person inspected the building to identify hazardous materials before the renovation work had begun. This was a repeated and high-risk violation, and the City Council doesn't seem to give a damn about that. They're partly responsible for not taking action when the renovation started and making sure that the building was safe for people to be in there. And remember Helen's article in the paper? If the people living upstairs wish to stay there while the renovations were taking place, we can work around them. They did find asbestos. And thank you for the time. I'm getting very tired of this myself, but I will come back at a later date and I will have my say, because there's so much more information that the public and yourselves probably don't even know anything about. Thanks for the time, and I apologize for the confusion at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, thank you for coming on, Mr. Anderson. And I do want to state that I don't fully agree with your comments around the meeting that you had with myself and the CAO. But I do recognize that you have been trying to get answers on this for quite some time, and I appreciate your frustration around that. CAO, could you just?
No, I don't. I don't want to. What I'm saying about the conversation we had is accurate. If CEO is going to comment, I want him to say that it wasn't accurate or it was.
No, I'm not going to ask the CAO about that. I'm wanting to ask the CAO because at our the last time that you did bring this forward, I did ask the CAO to ensure that you got the answers to your questions, recognizing your frustration with to have this information brought to you. So I'm disappointed to hear that you haven't been able to get that information. So I would like to ask the CAO to connect directly with you and try to get you the information that you're looking for.
If you don't want to, because I'm not allowed to ask questions, but I'm interested why you don't agree with my version of what happened at the meeting with you, because I think it was extremely accurate.
Okay, well, we can talk about it another time when we can have a.
Well, no, you put this out to the public. You put it out to the public that my information is incorrect.
Well, Neil, what you
everything I've said, I will stand by.
Correct. Okay.
Well, tell the public why.
Tim,
tell me why I'm wrong.
Tim, do you want to comment on?
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, we'll just cut off the conversation now then, Neil. Thank you.
Yes, because you don't want to answer the.
Oh, we've lost. Okay. Tim, I would like for you to try to reach out one more time to Mr. Anderson. I'm frustrated that this keeps coming to, are we on YouTube still? Yes, we are. I'm frustrated that this keeps coming to council. And unfortunately, I understand he is frustrated. I also think that, he's trying to get information that some of the information he's trying to get, we should be able to provide to him. So if you could please try to reach out to him I know there's a lot of confusion on process here, so maybe we can settle him by getting him the information he's looking for. Thank you. Let's move on. Staff reports, item number 1, accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated December 14, 2020 be received, and checks numbering 147569 to 147703 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $1,848,229.26 be approved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And item number 2 from the Deputy City Clerk, 2021 regular council meeting schedule, committee, commission meeting schedules, and appointments. Welcome.
Here, thank you. I'm just bringing this up here. I have many screens. Just a sec here. Okay. Thank you. So the report before you has been provided for council to establish council's regular meeting and committee and commission meeting schedules for 2021, as well as formalize acting mayor appointments, appointments to committees and council representatives to public bodies, commissions, and select committees in accordance with the community charter, council procedure bylaw, and individual committee process. Should council elect to approve the schedules and appointments as distributed, notice of the regular meeting schedule will be published and posted to public notice posting places along with the committee and commission schedules and appointments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, are there any questions? Councillor Solda.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, some of the committees have never met, they're non-existent, and I have no idea why they're on as appointments.
Sure.
I just wonder.
Which one specifically, Councillor Solda?
Well, the ones that I sit on, Rainbow Gardens, of course, meet, but they haven't for a long time because of COVID, which is understandable.
Yeah.
There's, I believe, it's not in front of me. There's the, can you bring it up?
Yeah, I'm just looking at your list here, Councillor Solda. So I have Liaison West Coast Native Healthcare Society, member of the Audit Committee. That one, of course, is active. You are possibly talking about the Alberni Valley Community Stakeholders Initiative.
Never met. And then there's the other one. There's another one there. Sorry, I can't even see it.
The APRD Transportation Committee, which I know they've been talking about getting going again. So I thought it was important to keep you on that one since you had a long history on it. The Court of Revision only meets when there's a need.
I know. I was on that for 14 years prior and they never met. So
14
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And then of course the Emergency Planning Committee is active.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the other ones have never met and all the years. And when Councillor Poon was on the initiative one, they never met either. So,
well, that's good to know. So I was on that committee for a period of last council and they were very active. They had monthly meetings. So something has possibly changed there. I think it would be worth us reaching out to see if they intend to be active still. And if not, I would suggest we look for another committee that we could potentially be a part of in their place because that is the initiative to end homelessness. And it is concerning to hear that that committee is not active at this point. I was not aware of that. So Councillor Solda, do you have a contact for that committee or have you not been contacted at all?
I've never been contacted and either. I believe Councillor Poon could probably answer that prior to she was on that.
I have also never been contacted for any meeting schedules on that committee.
Mm-hmm. So the CSI group, there's so many other groups now out there to do with homelessness. I think they've kind of I wouldn't be surprised if they parted ways, but and gone on their own initiatives. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out to you.
Yeah, I think we could certainly consider taking some of these off the list if they're not active. What I would suggest is that we, like the ACRD Transportation Committee, we want to leave on there. That's that will be an active committee. But the AVCSI, I think we should reach out. It was previously Patty who was running it. from Scott Fraser's office, and possibly when Patty retired, that fell off, but we could maybe reach out to Scott's office and see if they are intending for that, sorry, Josie's office, see if they are intending for that committee to be reinitiated. And if not, we could talk about next steps, because it might be something that the city wants to spearhead, if not.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up. Thank you.
I know that the community action team does similar work, but I think their mandate is a bit broader. Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Okay, Councillor Solda, would you like to start reading the motions?
I just put my agenda down. You have to give me a second. Okay, so Madam Mayor, I move that the 2021 regular meeting schedule of City Council be approved as circulated and staff be authorized to publish notice of availability of the schedule. Do you want them mixed up?
Yeah, just on its own is great. So moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. And if you want to continue.
I'll move that the 2021 meeting schedule for the Committee of the Whole, Advisory Planning Commission, Advisory Traffic Committee, and Alberni Valley Heritage Commission be approved and be circulated.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on that one? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
And I'll move that the 2021 acting mayor appointments to the committees and council representatives to public bodies, commissions, and selected committees be approved as circulated.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any comments on that one? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I would like to make sure that we reach out to our MLA's office to see if that committee is still active. And if not, then maybe we could have a conversation about filling that gap. Councillor Paulson.
Just thinking about ABCSI, I was attending those meetings on behalf of Low Energy Housing Society. And I have a feeling, particularly in Councillor Poon's term, that ABCSI was guilty of not properly communicating to Councillor Poon. But I do remember being in meetings, and the question came is, where is Councillor Poon? And I have a feeling that maybe they didn't have the right email address or something for that information. They have not met since COVID. Okay. I still get the odd email from them. Well, you can call it odd too, if you want. But I didn't know that Patty retired, but I would think that she would continue on as chair of the committee. So anyway, that's just kind of, I did attend some meetings there, but nothing has happened since COVID.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ron. And I think that I wondered if that was the case, that they may just not have, by matter of their process, started inviting our liaison. So I think that just making that connection and reaching out is a great step. Councillor Solda, you have been in contact with the grassroots movement, as they're calling themselves, quite a bit, representing some of the needs around homelessness. And so it might be an opportunity to bring that group as well and connect them into the ABCSI initiative if it does get back up and going. I think that, crossing over of more of these groups would be very valuable, as a lot of people seem to be just working in silos on kind of one piece of the issue. I think there's opportunity for more connection for sure. Okay. So we'll move on to item number 3 from the Deputy City Clerk, LGLA Leadership Forum and the BC EDA workshop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before you has been provided for Council to authorize the registration of Councillor Hager to participate in the annual Local Government Leadership Academy Forum, taking place virtually February 3rd and 4th, and the BC Economic Development Association Building Strong and Resilient Communities 4-part workshop series, taking place virtually as well, January 11th through 21st. Councillor Haggard expressed interest in participating in the forum and workshop, and while the city's travel expense policy authorizes members of council to attend the AVICC and UBCM, members of council wishing to participate in additional conferences requires authorization on the part of council. Due to COVID-19 and the associated restrictions on public gatherings resulting in a shift to virtual conference platforms, travel costs on the part of council members to attend have been significantly reduced. As such, funds remain available for participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would somebody like to make this motion? Councillor Poon.
Thank you. Yes, I'll move that council authorize Councillor Haggard to participate in the annual Local Government Leadership Academy, leading in unprecedented times, drafting a blueprint for the new normal, leadership forum taking place via virtual platform February 3rd to 4th, 2021. And that council authorize Councillor Haggard to participate in the BC Economic Development Association, BCEDA, BRE, Building Strong, Resilient Business Communities, Vancouver Island and Coast Mainland Southwest 4-session workshop taking place virtually from January 11th to 21st, 2021.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Wonderful. Anyone else wishing to attend these conferences? Okay, perfect. I'm glad that Councillor Haggard is able to attend. So on both of those, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 4, Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage, bid for the 2026 BC Summer Games.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On July 27th, 2020, Council directed staff to strike a bid committee to develop an application for the 2024 or 2026 BC Games. You appointed Councillor Paulson to participate as a member of that bid committee. So the bid committee will be submitting a bid in February 2021 to host the 2026 BC Summer Games being held July 23rd to 26th. At this point, staff recommend that council bid to host the 2026 BC Summer Games, commit an expenditure of $110,000 if the games are awarded, and also provide a letter of support for inclusion in our bid package.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Poon and then Councillor Solda.
Just a question, did we once host the Summer Games before? And what sort of economic boost has been quantified?
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, we've actually hosted all 4 games and in previous years. And so I would suggest that we are due to host again. And the economic legacy that's often provided in communities, some would argue up into the millions of dollars, and then also legacy funds. So that would be impact during the games themselves, because of course folks need to, fans and families and that sort of thing come and enjoy the games. And then also the legacy funds after the fact are also can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars as well.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Paulson, and then I think we had Councillor Washington. Oh, Solda.
Yeah, just a little bit broader view of this is the Games Society based in Victoria. The summer games that we're looking at we could be entertaining up to 3,400 athletes, and the BC Games Society actually kicks in $625,000 to help host, and certainly a lot of that goes to food, accommodation, and transportation. But there's a significant contribution from the BC government to host these games, and I have all the confidence in the world that we'd be very, very active with regards to corporate partnerships in the community to offset costs and stuff. So just thought I'd bring those 2 points up. I was surprised that they throw in $625,000 to help host. So that's economic generation right there.
Yeah, thank you. And just from the report, 55,000 is in kind and 55,000 cash is what we would be putting in our budget, it looked like. Yes, okay, perfect. So Councillor Solda and then Councillor Washington.
It's fine, Madam Mayor. My question was answered and asked. Thank you.
Great. Anything, Councillor Washington? Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Councillor Paulson, would you like to make this motion?
I would like to move that council for the city of Port Alberni bid to host the 2026 BC Summer Games, and then an expenditure of $55,000 cash and $55,000 in kind be committed if the games are awarded. And number two, the council for the city of Port Alberni provide a letter of support for inclusion in the bid package for the 2026 BC Summer Games.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
I just want to give council a heads up that I just got a warning on my iPad screen here. I'm down to 5%. So if I blink out, you'll know that I'm trying to figure out a way to charge this thing quickly.
I just got a similar warning, so I'm going to move rooms so that we don't lose the chair of the meeting for the second time today. Okay. There's only so many chargers in this house. Okay, so moving on, and I apologize, I need to see the agenda again now because I'm just on one screen now. City Clerk, are you able to go back up to the top of the agenda? Thank you. I've lost my second screen. Okay, so moving on to item 5 from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage, the Community Investment Program.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So council will recall that the City of Port Alberni created the Community Investment Program back in 2011. So that combined the former Grant and Aids program with the funds allocated for the gaming revenues. So just to bring council up to speed, the CIP process in 2020, we had $39,800 in cash and in-kind grants that were available for distribution. And due to COVID-19, many of these grants went underutilized. So as such, any unspent grants from the 2020 year will be rolled over to 2021. So those applicants wouldn't need to reapply for those funds. We would just roll those over and hold them for those applicants. And annually, staff comes before council to provide you with this report, as well as the recommendations from the committee for the coming year. So that's what this report in front of you represents. So in 2021, we had $32,500 included in the budget for distribution. So as of the November 6th, deadline, we received 6 grant applications. So this decrease, we normally receive 30 or more requests each year for funds. It's likely due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is why we've only seen 6 grant applications. So the current grant applications total under $15,000. So at this stage, staff recommends council to approve the requests as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just to talk about the dollars that we put into the community investment and also for Mclean Mill, don't we get that normally from the gaming funds, which has been stated? Now with the center, Pacific Rim, or not Pacific Rim, the gaming center has been sold to Colson's. How is that going to work? Do we have any idea? Because all the revenue that we used to get from gaming is no longer there at this moment. Is it going to happen? Is the gaming going to stay? Or do we have to look at another way to fund everything? Do we have any idea?
CAO, are you able to speak to what we know about gaming funds at this point?
Madam Mayor, I don't have specific information. The Director of Finance might. I don't think the ownership of the building will have any difference on the gaming revenue streams, just that they're not open right now. But Mr. McGifford might have specific information.
Madam Mayor, to CEO
Ply's point, the gaming revenue should continue. The revenue that we receive as a host community is through the provincial government. So if that facility continues to operate, we should receive similar payments from the province. Obviously, with the facility closed, we do have some risk to that revenue, and we've seen confirmation from the province that we wouldn't be receiving the second and third quarter. And obviously, with the casino closed, it's anticipated that we wouldn't receive funds until it reopens. With that, we were provided grant funding. This is an option for lost revenue that we would normally receive to use that grant funding. That's one of the possibilities that we could look at to still complete the commitments to the Mclean Mill and the CIP and others that are receiving funds from that base amount from community gaming.
So the term was used if they continue. So we aren't 100% guaranteed anything at this moment, from what I gather. If you used, I'm just so worried for the future, right? Like next year and stuff, because I mean, we're going to have a lot of nonprofits who are in trouble because they haven't been able to do operations, and we're not the greatest at either. So where are we going? And I know it's only for this one we're looking at, but I'm looking at the future too.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, did you have something else to add to that?
Yeah, so sorry if I said if, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure. I just know that if the casino continues to operate, the gaming fund should be coming for the community, and I have no knowledge of any other details as it relates to the casino.
I wonder, Madam Mayor, if we can check, maybe Mr. Colson might have an idea, or the Bingos or the Gaming Association might have an idea, because they're talking about dispersing some of the funds amongst the charities. So once the sale's done, so maybe we could just check and do some of our own homework on that.
I believe that piece of it is separate from the gaming funds that we receive.
Okay.
Our gaming funds come from the province, is my understanding, and so yeah, I don't think that that sale will have an impact.
Okay, that's true. Saying that, as I was saying that, I thought, well, that was dumb. But could we just check? I just wanted us to be sure when the time comes.
Yeah, and for sure. And I think this just speaks to, some of the bigger issues around COVID. And we obviously received the $3.5 million from the government intended to offset some of our unexpected costs and losses. And gaming funds are potentially a piece of that. So there's a lot of, we're not really sure exactly where our financial position is going to end up as a result of COVID. It will be a difficult time once we get through it. We have obviously additional costs. We have revenue losses and other changes as well. So I was going to suggest that before that, at some point we have a meeting dedicated to getting an update, a special meeting, getting an update on exactly where we have come due to COVID, because I think that there's a lot of information that would be relevant for us to see and for the public to see in terms of our additional costs and how we have to change some of our services and the financial impacts of that. I think people see that 3.5 million that we received and think, oh, great, the city has 3.5 million to spend. And that's very much not the case. So I think we should make sure that we have the full picture of that before we start, allocating funds and that type of thing. But back to the Community Investment Fund. Are there questions from council? Councillor Poon.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Paulson. Are there any further questions? I'll just say that I was very surprised to see so few applications. I hope that it is, well, I mean, I don't hope, but I hope that organizations haven't missed the opportunity because of other things going on with COVID. And I understand, approving the ones that we have. And I hope that if organizations come forward on a one-off basis needing funds, that we could potentially fund organizations for things that are a bit out of the norm this year, that organizations, nonprofits have had to do. So this is very strange. Usually we are oversubscribed to the community investment program. I think this is a really big shock, and maybe it's just events not going on, but I also know that our nonprofits are overworked right now in a lot of ways with all that they're, being asked to do in the community to provide response to COVID. So hopefully we can take them on a one-off basis if needed as we go forward. So on the motion to approve the allotments of the Community Investment Fund, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And to just get back to the top of my agenda. Okay, on to item 6 from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage Facilities Operation Update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At your September 14th regular meeting, Council directed staff to reopen the Aquatic Centre. Staff indicated at that time that we would return with an update about facilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. So with their ever-evolving provincial health officer orders regarding COVID-19 and resulting impact to public participation at our facilities, staff is seeking direction from Council that staff is empowered over the coming weeks to make decisions related to facility operating hours should we need to. So with Council not meeting next until mid-January, this would enable our operation to remain nimble. One thing that Council should be aware of is if Council does empower staff to adjust operating hours if needed, it could result in the public approaching Council with some pushback.
Okay. Are there questions from Council? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering with am I correct to assume that a lot of the programming has kind of been put in the back room and we're just waiting on Bonnie Henry's next update, or are we business as usual, or what exactly is going on with our various programs?
So, Madam Mayor, it's a combination of the two. So, for instance, we just actually received today, I received it actually before it went public, the updated guidelines to offer low intensity fitness type programs. So those have been on hold until organizations were able to provide an updated safety plan. So we received the order in November. We just received the guidelines today on how we can actually offer that service. So that's something we'll be looking to offer again after Christmas. Whereas things like adult structured recreation, so thinking in our case, the adult hockey and skating programs at the multiplex, those have been instructed by the provincial health officer to cease indefinitely at this point. So what that means is that minor hockey carries on, the Aerosmith Skating Club, so the youth and children programs at the multiplex continue, as well as our Christmas camps and that sort of thing, but our adult recreation leagues must cease at this stage until we hear from Dr. Henry in early January with her next update. We're unsure at this point if she may extend the order past the 8th of January or that it may change completely. So the short answer to that question is we're experiencing both. So in some ways we're business as normal, and in other ways we aren't at all.
So do we have people laid off or reassigned or anything like that?
Not at this stage, no, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, what are our numbers like at Echo Pool? I know that there's a lot of restrictions on there, but is this pool still operating its regular hours, trying to work within these restrictions, or what is happening at Echo Pool?
Yeah, so we are operating our normal operating hours. Yes, the attendance has shifted, our capacity has shifted based on the provincial health orders. So two differences you'll notice at our local Echo Aquatic Centre that are different in other communities, and again, it varies across the province. Based on how our infrastructure is built with things like our sauna as well as our hot tub being in a fairly enclosed space, we haven't actually opened. So even back in September when we reopened the Echo Aquatic Centre, we chose not to open the sauna or the hot tub based on that close proximity or that confined space that we're not comfortable that it's enough of an open air environment to run those facilities at this point. That may change as we go along. And if council would like to see specific attendance numbers, staff would be happy to pull those and provide a report to council.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson.
With regards to us giving staff the ability to adjust hours and stuff like that, I really don't have a problem with that. The COVID situation is so fluid, and I just don't see it getting any better as far as pushback from user groups. I would hope that we would have enough ammunition and pushback from the provincial health officer with regards to those programs and stuff. So, and between now and the next time we meet, I think that I'm very confident in our staff that they'll be able to handle this in a very judicious manner.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Paulson, and I agree very much. I think we all want to, keep offering the services that we offer, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're making decisions that, in a time like this, lose as little money as possible, and that can be very challenging to balance. Back to that $3.5 million that we got from the province. I recognize that money is to offset losses that we incur. I think it's important for us to remember that we could be in the long-term fallout from COVID position for several years. And a lot of our revenue streams may take not just the next 6 months until there's a vaccine that we're all able to have if we want, or whatever that looks like. But for many years, it might take our community to recover financially and economically from COVID. We've done very well to this point, but I think that our revenue streams as a municipality could be impacted long term. And I think that money needs to be looked at, that we may need it to last long term. So I very much want to see us make sure that we use that money as a last resort, and that we don't subsidize services where we should be temporarily closing that service. So if a service needs to be changed or closed due to loss, and where it just doesn't feasibly make sense to offer it for a period of time, then I'm fully supportive of doing that in a way to respond to just changing needs with COVID right now. Councillor Poon, you had your hand up. I missed you.
Oh, my thoughts have already been expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you. If you do go to reduced hours, will the staff be laid off as well to correspond with reduced working hours?
Madam Mayor, we wouldn't, I don't have that answer at this stage. So that would all be part of the conversation, and obviously reviewing any adjustment to operation. So at this point, I couldn't comment on that, on what the adjustment might be.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard, I think the motion we have in front of us is just to receive. Director Thorpe, do you need any additional direction from us, or is just to receive sufficient?
No, Madam Mayor, just to receive is great. Thank you.
Great.
Move receipt.
Move receipt by Councillor Poon. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no further comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Looks like we might have lost Councillor Paulson to his iPad dying. Hopefully he'll be back on shortly. Okay, and moving on to item 7, Director of Corporate Services, we have the Dr. Hasselbeck presentation to Council from June 24th, 2019, and regarding Mclean Mill. And this was just a reminder of the report and a bit of an update. Twyla, are you wanting to speak to this as an overview?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So essentially it is just what you restated, is that Dr. Hasselbeck did make a presentation to Council back in 2019 in June. At that time, following Dr. Hasselbeck's presentation, Council did identify a number of directives stemming from that. This report is just following up as to what actions had been carried out at the direction of the CAO, who had distributed an email to management staff not within 2 weeks following Dr. Hasselbeck's presentation. So this also stems from questions submitted at the last meeting from Mr. John Adams. So in it, it states that items 1 was carried out, and it was identified in the city's financial plan. item number 2, which listed a number of reports being shared with WorkSafe BC, that information is being compiled and will be sent to the appropriate individual at WorkSafe. Number 3, it indicates that no immediate action was taken. However, the operations and maintenance agreement with the new service provider, being the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, speaks to how operations of the Mclean Mill are expected to maintain and operate at the site. Number 4 was acted upon, and that was with engagement at both the federal and provincial level when it came to the environmental piece. And a letter of thanks was sent to Dr. Hasselback. With regards to establishing an advisory group, action was not taken on that item. And that summarizes the steps that were taken. And if you prefer to have the CAO comment on the advisory group.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Solda.
Just, can somebody tell me what the Terra West report is that he asked to be forwarded to WorkSafe BC? I'm just curious to know what the Terra West, what is that?
Madam Mayor, the Terra West report was a stage 1 environmental review of the entire Mclean Mill site. It was undertaken in 2019, I believe.
Okay. And that was forwarded, I guess? Because that's what I'm hearing, all reports were forwarded.
Twyla?
No, just to say item number 2 had not been acted upon, but that information is being compiled now and will be sent to the appropriate representative at WorkSafe.
No, that was item number 1. Sorry, item number 1.
Item number 1 deals with the budget implications.
Oh, I'm reading when I thought we were answering Mr. John Adams' letter, and that's what.
Okay, so the item number 1 was John Adams' question, and then in the direction from the CAO by email, Terra West actually fell within number 2.
Oh, okay, got
that
it.
helps to clarify.
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for the issues that haven't been addressed, do we have a timeline for them, or are they in process, or what's going on with them?
Sorry, Councillor, I spoke over you there. Madam Mayor, I believe that all of the Director of Corporate Services just reported that all have been actioned or being actioned, other than number 5. So number 5 says staff report back recommending potential local professional participants to sit on an advisory group. And I'd ask staff to stand still on that one. I wanted to interact with council, and now's as good a time as any to say to you, before we start bringing forward names to give advice to council, we should consider what that structure looks like. So is this a standing committee, a select committee, an advisory group or committee or commission? Are you interested in hearing or receiving a report that proposes a structure before we start talking about people? Or are you satisfied that you do not want to proceed with that at this point? And if you want to consider this at a subsequent meeting, we can bring it back to another one.
Thank you. I have Councillor Haggard first.
Thank you. I'm going to be honest in regards to number 5. I really am not clear of what the role of the advisory group would be. And plus, we do have an operator that's taken over the operations in the Mclean Mill. So I would not want an advisory group telling them how to do their business. So I'm just really unclear what the role would be and why we would be doing it. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. My feeling is that we need to stop asking volunteers to tell us how to manage our property, and we need to make sure that we are the ones actively managing our site and making sure that we don't have accidents and other types of events out there. So I feel like this should, managing our site as a staff function, and I don't see the role of an advisory group here either. Councillor Corbeil and then Councillor Solda.
Well, Madam Mayor, just to be clear, it talks about professionals, and unfortunately, I think we're lacking professionals when it comes to managing the site out there.
then I think we need a budget, because we can't expect professionals to do it on a volunteer basis. So do we want to add a budget to retain professionals? And if we do, then we need to retain a professional. But I don't see this being done by volunteers. And frankly, I'm quite tired of us asking volunteers to tell us what to do with that site. It has gotten us into, I don't think it's progressed us lately. Councillor Solda.
You know, there's number 5 here. I would like more clarity exactly what he meant by that. Is it to run the site or not, or to do something else? So I don't think it's very clear. And I would like to see what he means by the city advisory group on doing what out there. I don't think it's clear.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
It's not clear because he wasn't clear in his presentation. I rewatched it last night and it just wasn't clear about what their role would be.
So maybe we need clarity, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I think that if there is a function that we're looking for, we can retain someone for that function. I don't know, CAO, what is your advice on this? Do you think that we have a gap in terms of having the knowledge to oversee what's going on out there? Or do you think that we have staff that can do that? Do you think we need a contractor? Do you think we need an advisory committee?
That's a big question, Madam Mayor. My recollection of this conversation was that we were talking about environmental concerns, and that the suggestion was that the city might assemble a group of people, local and professional, both, who could give council advice on how to proceed with the environmental concerns and the environmental concerns at Mclean Mill. It seems to be a pretty narrow recommendation, but it doesn't come with any, and council was quick to adopt all of the recommendations from Dr. Hausblatt that day, but it doesn't provide any structure or is this a Heritage Advisory Commission? Is it purely an environmental oversight or recommending like a select committee? It doesn't really say that. So I think it falls to council to say, do you want to assemble a group to give you advice on environmental matters at Mclean Mill? Or do you want to retain professional help when you need it? And do we have on staff people, not per se, not with technical expertise, but we certainly have contractors that are available to us who we retain as needed.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Would somebody like to move receipt of this report?
Move receipt.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. More discussion to come about this one, obviously. CAO, go ahead.
Before you vote, I guess I would offer one piece of advice, and we may talk about this later, is that I think a critical piece that would be helpful to council would be an assessment of risk at Mclean Mill and other sites that the city owns. But we've already undertaken that work, and I'll talk about that a little later today. But internally, we've already started to assess risks. But that might be more helpful than anything, that to have a professional come in and tell us where the risks are first before we ask people what to do with those risks.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. I think council needs to be fully aware of all of the potential liabilities and what liabilities we're insuring on others' behalfs as well, so that we can make sure we are properly covered, and so that we can make sure that we don't have significant issues that come up down the road. But I don't think that necessarily a committee is the way to approach that. I do think that retaining a professional to assess our risk as a municipality would be a great step. Thank you. So on the motion to receive, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Sorry, any opposed? Carried. And item number 8 from the Director of Corporate Services, Agricultural Land Reserve, Mclean Mill exclusion application.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Mclean Mill National Historic Site is owned by the city. The city has entered into an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to maintain and operate the mill on the city's behalf. The city recently made a non-farm use application to the ALC in an effort to come into compliance with ALR regulations while maintaining current services at the site. While the city's application was denied, a statement contained in the response from the ALC denying the non-farm use application indicated that the ALC would accept a submission of an exclusion application for the property for the commission's consideration. So at council's last meeting, prior to moving forward with an exclusion application, council requested a cost estimate as to what that may look like for the city to apply. So that is included in the analysis on this report, where it talks about the prescribed application form at $750, sign costs $500, advertising notification requirements as a result of a required public hearing estimated to be $1,500. At the time of writing this report, initial figures suggested that it would be roughly $8,700 to retain professional consultant to carry out the public hearing. We've since learned that that perhaps can be reduced to about $5,000. And then retaining a professional agrologist to assist the city with our application is estimated to be $3,000. So rather than the total reflected here of $14,500, taking into consideration the reduced professional consultant for the public hearing piece, we would be looking at just under $10,000 to prepare an application for exclusion.
Thank you. Are there questions from council? Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I think it's really important that we prepare this application to a high standard, and I'm glad to see that the recommendations are to retain a consultant, because I think we really only have one shot at this. We want to get this right the first time, right? And hopefully it gets through.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think our money would be better spent if we looked at hiring somebody to help us figure out a different funding model for this mill site. It seems like it's one thing after another, and notwithstanding Mr. Collette's $5,000 that we might be getting this year, it's costing this community hundreds of thousands of dollars. And quite frankly, I'm just getting really quite tired of it. And if it's not oil spills, it's dam repair. If it's not dam repair, it's a bridge or a septic tank or some darn thing. And it's time that somebody talks to the federal government, provincial government, and help us out. You know, the community of Duncan pays $1,500 a year for the Forest Museum, and we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this community is not big enough to afford luxuries like this. So, you know, I don't know if there's somebody out there that could help us figure out a different funding model, but the one we've got right now is just not working. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Not working. Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I would concur with Councillor Corbeil. And the thing is that we've been discussing this for years, not this council, but previous councils for 14 years. Let's take it down. Let's take the budget down. Let's make a call. Look it down in the Duncan area. They have one there and they get all this money and we don't. So, you know, I'm looking at it going, we have some ambitious things on our strategic plan and it's going to take money. And we're pumping a lot of money into the Mclean Mill and just fixing up things and doing things and stuff like that. And we need to have a different look because this is not working. And unless someone really can convince me, but it's not working. Agriculture farms can be anything. You know, if ALR is going to take it out, great, perfect. But what if they turn around and say, hey, we can build greenhouses on there, and that's agriculture. We can do marijuana grow up or something like that. That's agriculture now. So, I mean, there's so many different interpretations for agriculture. Who knows? But we need to do something, and it's getting frustrating. I remember 14 years ago when I came on council, we were going to take it down. We took the budget down. We took the money, took their money down, their financing and everything. And suddenly here we are with all these unfortunate problems that we have. So we need to do something, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate problems that keep that are plaguing us and continue to plague us. And I believe that we have an operating model right now and a partner in the chamber that are doing well and will do well and will be successful and will, help build something that we can be proud of as a community. But I feel like I can't support one more dollar going into this because it never ends. It's not the chamber's fault. The chamber is doing a fantastic job, especially with, the hand they've been dealt with COVID. But it's one disaster after another. And even when we take a closer role in managing, instead of relying on volunteers, it's not even just, one group where the accidents are happening. It seems like everything that can go wrong out there goes wrong. And when something goes wrong at a facility, it might cost $50,000. When something goes wrong at Mclean Mill, it costs $400,000 or it costs $1 million. And that just happens over and over and over again. It's all of the unexpected costs, the unanticipated costs, the unbudgeted costs that are going to bankrupt us with this mill. And I just don't understand how we can keep doing this. I'm so beyond frustrated, and we're not even at the frustrating piece of our agenda on this topic. So this is not a good place to be. And I recognize that this is not, the frustrations that we're having are outside of this application to make an exclusion of the ALC. But it's all related, because at the end of the day, it all comes from our budget. And so, $15,000 for this. Well, we just spent time and staff time and money preparing the application for the non-farm use permission, which was denied. It seems like we put Mclean Mill ahead of everything else time and time again, and it continues to fail. And we just keep doing the same thing. And I don't know how to support this going forward. So I'm really at a loss. I'm incredibly frustrated. And like I said, we're not even at the worst part yet. Councillor Solda.
Well, the other thing too, Madam Mayor, is when you hear from Mr. Adams and you hear his stories and what's happened in the past and stuff like that, you look at Mr. Adams, he came up and he said, I have 14 calves born. I think it was 14. It was quite a number. Where in the past, they're dying. He's had to shoot his calves that were born because there was something wrong with them, and to do with the pond and all that. So there's more to his story. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what he said. And again, we need to do something. We need to really look at it. And I'm not blaming the chamber. It's ALR. We can only do so much on the ALR. Our hands are tied until it comes out of the ALR, but it doesn't matter, the rules are rules. And like I said before, let's get the horse before the cart, and instead of going the other way around, and let's get it checked and let's do what we have to do. But I'm not, to convince me to spend more money is going to be a different story. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard, did you have any comments or thoughts on this?
Well, going back to Bill's presentation a little bit earlier, there is money saved in the budget for him. So we're not asking for extra money that isn't budgeted for. And if we're going to keep moving forward, I think we have to spend the $10,000 in order to get the mill out of ALR. So I think maybe the bigger question is not this, but are we going to keep Mclean Mill, or are we going to shut the doors?
Thank you. Councillor Washington, any thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this action is an integral part of if there's going to be a future of the Mclean's Mill. And Bill Collette's story sounds quite promising. But if we don't support this 10 grand, I think his days of the gift shop are probably going to be over, if I'm not wrong.
Councillor Corbeil and then Councillor Solda.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'm not saying not to apply for this removing from the agricultural land, but I just think it's premature with all that's going on out there. We really need to have a real good look at, can we continue doing this? I could care less if it's in agricultural land or not. I don't care if they have weddings out there or not. None of that makes any difference to me. I want the soil to be clean and I want it to be affordable. Going forward, if we're going to be paying on the average $500,000 a year, and even as Bill said, had it been a good year, we would have got 16,000 back. That's not overly sustainable. So we've got to come up with a different funding model, or we are forever going to be having these same conversations, or the next council will be having the same conversations, and things that we would like to do, we can't do because we're pumping money into that mill. So I think before we do anything, we got to really, if we have to hire somebody that has more knowledge about how the original contract was written, so be it. But the time has come to change direction.
Yeah, and it's not sustainable. No questions, it's not sustainable. And that said, in the time that I've been on council, and Councillor Paulson, who I notice is not on, and probably would like to be a part of this conversation, so hopefully we're able to get him back on. We have seen the subsidy, the operating subsidy, come down around $100,000 a year. So, it is going in the right direction in terms of the operating costs that we're paying. It's these disasters that keep coming up. I was Googling Mclean Mill last night, looking for something, and I came across an article that said, future of Mclean Mill uncertain after log pond incident. And that was from 2 years ago. And I was quoted saying, we can't keep endlessly spending money on this. And I feel like I've been quoted saying that every year that I've been on council. And yet we do just keep endlessly spending money on it. And I understand, I appreciate the quote that Bill read from Anita earlier today, that she didn't get it and that it is historic, it is significant. I don't want to downplay that at all. It is an incredible site, and it does represent the history of a piece of the history of this community, a piece, let's be clear, in a really important way. But we cannot keep endlessly spending money on this, and we do keep endlessly spending money on it, and we have not changed what we've done, even though we've made some small improvements. It's the disasters that keep coming up that continue to cost us significant amount of money. Tim, I see you're coming on. Do you have a comment to make?
Madam Mayor, if I can offer a bit of advice. This council, through no fault of your own, you have inherited some legacy challenges, like any council will. I would guess that you have had more than your share already in the past 2 years. And we're not done with Mclean Mill. It's brought some legacy headaches to you. What you have done really well is you've started to take more control, more direct control of things. So you've made some really hard decisions early on in your term, where you said, we just can't continue to do these things the way we've done them in the past. And I think that's the right path to take. I think that we're on a better path with Mclean Mill today than we were in recent years or previous terms of councils. And the situation is different. The times are different. I think if you want to consider whether you devolve or delist Mclean Mill or divest ourselves of it, those are all good conversations to have with all the information you need. The question before you right now is, do you want to spend some money to make an application to remove this property from the agricultural land reserve? And I think that's, if you can focus on just that question, you can make those other decisions later. Right now, the question is, do you want to leave it in the ALR, or do you want to take it out of the ALR? And if you want to take it out, you have the budget estimate. If you don't want to take it out, if you just want to pause or whatever, then that's the direction, right? I would think that given the challenges that we've faced and really the muck we've been dragged through, quite honestly, that the city's been dragged through to do with Mclean Mill, Agricultural Land Commission did not come looking for us. They were asked to come in and take action against the city. And now they've more or less said, I think, here's an avenue for you to follow to get out from under the regulations of the Agricultural Land Reserve. The question is before you now, do you want to take that avenue or not?
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I agree again with Councillor Corbeil on this. the gift shops can be opened anywhere, Madam Mayor. Taking it out of the ALR, we still have so much cleanup to do in that, on that site. I don't know when it will stop and if, and when, and how much money it's going to cost. I don't know. Take it out of the ALR, fine, let's try it. But I'm not gonna be ecstatic when it comes down to budget time to vote on dollars and cents till we figure out what we're doing on the cleanup site, because it's gonna cost us a lot of money. So that's my thoughts. And and at the moment, it should be run the way the ALR has been asking it to be run, because we do have a covenant on it and we have rules that we have to follow. So I would rather be legal than not. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Haggard.
I'll make the motion. Well, first, I'd like to make a motion that we receive the report. And secondly, I'd like to make the motion that we instruct staff to spend the $10,000 from the Mclean Mill budget of the $40,000 in order to hire a consultant to take the application, complete the application to take the Mclean Mill out of the LR.
Thank you. Is there some-
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any final comments? Okay, seeing none, all, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Corbeil.
Well, a final comment. So again, I don't have an issue, just it's more money, of course, but I think the bigger question, which maybe I'll make a motion after this motion, is to have a, I don't know, God, I hate hiring consultants all the time, but is there anybody in City Hall that can look into this stuff? But, you know, a different form of funding, or do we close the doors? I mean, it's to that point. But anyways, I'm in favor of this motion, I guess. I just hopefully it doesn't cost us the full $10,000.
Thank you, CAO.
Madam Mayor, first of all, Councillor Paulson is in the meeting now on the telephone. So if you can ask for his vote audibly. And to Councillor Corbeil's comment, I think one of the first things we need to do, and you have started to do this already, is to take control of what we can take control of. And so in the years past, you know, we may have railed against the cost associated with Mclean Mill, but we weren't prepared to make the hard decisions about not running it, for example, and not doing some things. So we continue to do what we thought was important, and we wanted somebody else to pay for that. And you started down the path, and I'd like to see you continue where we start to dictate what we're prepared to see done at Mclean Mill and what we're not prepared to condone and underwrite. And those are hard decisions to make, and they'll upset some people. But the more control we take of our own, clean up our own house, so to speak, take control of our own situation, and then we can approach other funders and say, look, we've got our house in order. Will you partner with us? But so far, you know, we're not really in a position to do that, I don't think. But we're closer. We're closer than we used to be.
Thank you. Okay, on the motion to proceed with the application for $10,000, up to $10,000 to remove Mclean Mill property from the ALC, all in favor? And Councillor Paulson?
*6 to unmute yourself, Councillor Paulson.
In favor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. And opposed? Thank you. Okay, Council, we've been going for 2 hours, so I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute recess, and we will come back at 4:08. Thank you. Okay, we have half of us back. And I'm just checking, I think we have Councillor Paulson on the phone still. Yeah, looks like he's there.
Correct.
Yes, I'm about 8% on my tablet. I'm going to give it a little more time.
Thank you. No, that's great, Councillor Paulson, as long as you're there, and just speak up if I happen to forget to call on you.
Nothing will be new there.
I'm sure you'll speak up. Thank you. Okay, so Council, back to our agenda. We are on to item number 9 from the Director of Corporate Services, 3123 3rd Avenue and 4781 Margaret Street, property updates on remedial action orders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is just that, updating council at their request for property located at 3123 3rd Avenue and 4781 Margaret Street. So I'll start with the 3123 Avenue property. Previous application was made under the facade improvement program, which was approved, and a deadline extended for work to be complete. No work was undertaken by the extended deadline date, so the program administrator of Community Futures advised the property owner that his previously approved application had been closed and that the owner was no longer eligible for funding due to failure to meet the program requirements. Since that time, the owner did subsequently begin to undertake improvements to the building facade, at which time building permit application was made. When renovations started, it was noticed that the building may be structurally compromised, so that triggered the requirements for a professional to come in and another building permit application. So at the writing of this report, to date, neither building permit application has been issued to the owner, and it's basically in that holding pattern. The property owner is also required to make an application for a development permit to carry out the works. With regards to the 4781 Margaret Street property, previous direction from council back in 2019 was to move forward with demolishing the damaged building, remove all debris from the demolition to an appropriate disposal site, and level the site. At the writing of this report, the property is currently in foreclosure and demolition has therefore not occurred. It's before the courts on the 16th of December, and should the sale be approved, the property completion date would be December 30th. So if that's the case, the new purchaser is aware of the requirements outlined in this report, and then staff would be working with the new owner to take appropriate steps after the completion date.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from council? Councillor Solda.
So when we talk about the 3rd Avenue, is that the squash court?
Yes.
Okay, so what are we going to do about that? Like, okay, so there's no funding due date, is in failure, meets requirements. So now what happens?
So if it's helpful, council could request a report from staff, which could speak to steps available to address the building permit applications that have yet to be issued and the development permit, and given what's currently transpiring, what steps the city could take to rectify that situation.
I think we need to, Madam Mayor, to move forward on this. It's been how many years? How long is it going to take? I mean, I understand we have COVID, we have it's winter. I can accept all that, but we need to move forward in the new year.
Yeah, and we've given, significant chances here to have this, the facade finished and the building brought, up to the standard that it needs to be. And that scaffolding has been taking up city sidewalk for many, many more months than it should have been, even with COVID. Property owners all over this town have been able to keep their renovations and construction going through COVID. And I think that we have given a lot of leeway, as you said, Councillor Solda, for the challenges that have come into play in that time, but at some point enough is enough.
Well, and also it's not fair to the business that has just opened up there this summer, you know, and what they've done and what this building's got. It's not fair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Corbeil, did I see your hand up? No. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Solda.
So Madam Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
maybe,
Okay, Councillor Solda
sorry.
and Councillor Kuhn.
Sorry. So,
Oh, sorry. I just meant to move receipt.
Okay.
Okay.
Just Councillor Paulson,
Before
just
we
with a quick.
Everybody stop interrupting Councillor Solda.
Maybe they want to.
Steamy.
Just a moment, Councillor Paulson. Go ahead, Councillor Solda.
So Madam Mayor, could we bring this back at our next meeting and make a decision what we're going to do? I'll let it go for a couple of weeks to, you know, after Christmas and come back.
Why don't we ask for, we could add to Councillor Poon's motion, if she's okay, motion to receive and request a report from staff on next steps for the squash club.
Yes, I'll second that motion from the council.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Paulson.
Well, I concur wholeheartedly with the motion, and just remind public and council that the front of that building has been in a state for much longer than just the scaffolding and stuff up there. If you remember correctly, it was down to the black paper for probably over a year.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that scaffolding's been there for at least getting on close to a year, if not longer. It just seems to be stages and dragging this thing out. And I just so totally agree that you've got a new business that's just opened up. It's another blight on that kind of area of our city. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Paulson. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, on the motion to receive and request a report for next possible steps on the squash club, all in favor? Carried. We'll count Councillor Paulson in favor.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 10 from the Director of Finance, total debt summary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So back in February of 2020, Council asked staff to bring forward a report to address the current debt that the City of Port Alberni has. And within this report, the information is provided. It's broken down by general debt, and that has some debt associated with our RCMP building for the most part, and that is covered through taxation, water, and sewer, which is covered through our fees and charges through our utility bills. And that is covered through those the utility bills that are sent out every 4 months. So the total debt that the City of Port Alberni has at this time is $14.3 million at the end of December 2019. And the debt per capita was $808 at the end of December 2019. And $180 of this is associated through taxation recovery every year. Or not every year, sorry, but through taxation. And then 627 is covered through our fees and charges through our utility bills. So noting that a lot of the upgrades that we've made through our lagoon and our water service are all regulatory improvements that the province and the federal government has required the city to meet. So these are debts that are taken on to meet those requirements. So, there's also the component that there was a request to have a per household estimate for the debt, and I didn't include that in the report, but there's 6,388 homes in Port Alberni, and at $14.3 million, it would be about $2,236 per household. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions on this? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, when I look at this report, I know we have an we go through the regional district and the regional district borrows, but what about our airport debt? Because we have a debt there. And also here we looking at this report, fees and charges, new sewer lagoon, but we also had a shortfall. So is that shortfall built into this? I think it was, I forgot how much it was, the shortfall. So maybe we could get something on that.
Madam Mayor, I'm not sure what the shortfall is, but we have an approval of $5.68 million in the 2020-2024 plan, which would bring up the total debt to just under $20 million. That still is something that we could action, but we haven't actioned that yet because we haven't required it and the project hasn't been completed. The ACRD debt is through the ACRD, and they run the service for the Port Alberni Airport, and the debt for that is associated with that service. So back in I think it was 2015, there was an assent process that was that provided the approval for that debt through the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District, and at that time there was an approval to have $6 million. At this time, there was $5.7 million remaining on the ACRD debt that they have, and we are tax requisitioned approximately $350,000 or $367,000 in 2020 for the airport, and of that requisition, $71,175 associated with the debt payment in the year.
It's just hard for me to understand because to me that's our debt too. Their debt is our debt because we borrowed too, part of it. I don't know. Maybe I just don't comprehend that. But it's part of, I would classify it as our debt too.
I think it's fair to recognize that we pay a significant portion of the regional district, and so that service we are a part of through the regional district, and therefore, we pay a significant amount of the airport debt. It is not our debt, but I think it depends. We asked for a report as council for our current debt. Our current debt and where it's at, and that doesn't include the airport. It doesn't mean we're not paying it. We know we're paying it, but it is not a part of our debt as we would normally present it. If we want to get information about the airport, further information about the airport, additional to what Andrew has already provided, we certainly can do that. And I don't think this is in any way anyone's attempt to frame this as in we are not paying that debt. We recognize that we are. That just was not the intent of the report that council requested to include the regional district's debt.
I understand that, Madam Mayor. I actually hit a few months back, I asked for our total of the airport from the ACRD. So thank you.
Yeah, so I think Andrew's provided that. If there's further information needed, you're certainly welcome to request it. And I would understand that the any additional funds needed once they are expended for the sewage lagoon would then, of course, be borrowed and included in our debt summary. Are there other questions, Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Andrew, just a question: if we were to borrow money for a facility, there's a limit to to how big our debt can be. I understand. How is that determined, and are we anywhere near our limit?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So with our debt, the province has limitations on how much we can borrow. So there's a formula, and that formula is 25% of our revenues that we have control over. So every year we go through the local government data entry system, and we input our requirements and what we've had for debt. And at this time, if we had just $8.5 million of room without requirement to go to a cent from the public, obviously with a $5.68 million borrowing, that would bring that room that we have before we can go to a cent down. So,
thank you
very much.
Okay, any other questions on this? Okay, Andrew, thanks very much for the report. It was very informative, and it's nice to just see that picture of where we're at. And it's also nice to, other than that sewage lagoon, not be in a position where we are needing to look at taking on any new debt right now. So yeah, thanks for the report. And would somebody like to move receipt?
Move receipt.
Okay, moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, and on to item 11 from the Chief Administrative Officer, Mclean Mill, update regarding response to oil spill. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I have a report updating council on the oil release incident at Mclean Mill. We last reported to you on November 3rd that sometime prior to October 26th, a valve that was reported to have been locked with a chain was opened, and oil was spilled, bunker oil was spilled onto the ground. We now know that that volume has been estimated to be 6,000 liters, no small amount. The bunker oil had been stored on site in a railed tank car as fuel for Alberni Pacific Railway's number 7 steam locomotive owned by the city, operated by APR. So the city responded. We engaged Terra West Environmental as our prime contractor, and through them retained a number of contractors and consultants. The release was reported by the city to Ministry of Environment, Department of Fisheries, and the regional district, and the city's also been engaging with several other regulatory agencies regarding the incident. All the oil released and any water contaminated, any rainwater and such that was contaminated, has been recovered and transported to a licensed disposal facility on southern Vancouver Island. Contaminated soil was removed and transported to a disposal facility near Mission, BC, or in Mission. There was a resulting excavation after removing all this material, and it was backfilled with clean aggregate material. And there is no evidence that bunker oil entered any stream. There will be an ongoing requirement that the city monitor the site, and wells have been installed for that purpose. We don't yet know the city's full cost to respond and mitigate to this incident, but it is significant. And I can tell you that our estimates right now are that the incident will cost in the range of $1.25 million to respond and mitigate that spill. We have an environmental insurance policy of $100,000, which we are in the process of activating. There is potential that we can get a smaller amount as well for land issues. And Madam Mayor, I'm sorry to have to bring you that news. I know that's nothing that anybody wants to hear. And staff, various staff members are equipped with more information if you have questions that you require more depth on.
Thank you. Councillor Solda first, and then Councillor Poon and Washington. Councillor Solda, you're muted.
Other than being upset about it, it has to be done. The insurance, will they be able to cover all of it or just a quarter of it? Do we know anything about it?
Up to $100,000.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I want to hear from Director of Finance on the insurance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So within our policy, there's a sub-limit for pollution cleanup. That limit is $100,000 with a $10,000 deductible. So that would be the limits to our pollution cleanup policy. There is, as CAO Ply mentioned, the property insurance policy that would cover some of the property cleanup that we've done, the losses for our property. And we anticipate that being under $50,000. So.
Madam Mayor, what about the gas tax? Because it's environmental gas, would that help?
Madam Mayor, the Director of Finance is working on finding other funding sources for this, and he might be able to summarize some now and at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Do you have anything to add, Andrew?
Madam Mayor, I reached out to FCM to see if there was any ability for us to have a grant or any funding support for this. And for a spill as this nature, FCM said that there wasn't any funding available for this. They're more looking at the green municipal fund for brownfield development and cleanup. So that was one area that we looked at, and we reached out to EMBC too to see if there's any cost recovery through them, and very minor cost recoveries that might not be of any value. So there's, we're limited on what we can do as far as look at additional funding sources for this outside of being funded within the city of Pearl Alberni.
Thank you. Councillor Poon, and then Washington and Corbeil.
Just wanted to say very disappointed with the cost incurred. Was there at any time an option not to clean up, and would it not have bolstered our chances to remove the site from ALR to have a contamination?
Madam Mayor, I don't know that there was an option not to clean up. There may have been an option to clean up to a lesser amount, and Mr. Watson is on the call. He might be able to speak to the level of remediation that was undertaken. And Councillor Poon's question around this related to an exclusion application, I just don't know on that. Mr. Watson might be able to provide advice, or when we retain a consultant on this, that person might be able to give advice as well.
Certainly, Madam Mayor, and I'm preface my comments to that I'm not a lawyer, of course, but with respect to reporting this spill immediately to the Ministry of Environment, we had clearly had obligations, legal ones, as the landowner to respond. In my view, we didn't have any option with regard to the response. It was a large volume of crude oil on the ground. And if you had seen that, and I think the question wouldn't even be asked if there's an obligation to clean up or not. It was a very dramatic event. And I hesitate to even say this, but in a way, we were lucky with the response in that some extremely heavy rains occurred, but a couple of days after we were aware of the spill, and we were able to contain the material in the area that had spilled without it getting into the adjacent wetlands and creeks. If that had happened, it would have been a much more difficult and maybe impossible cleanup in large measure. So we were able to contain the spill in the area that it was discharged to. And we didn't know how much soil would have to be removed, and it was considerably more than we had initially expected, because the product had seeped into the ground dramatically in some areas. We had to remove all 3 of the rail lines that were in proximity in order to chase after the contaminated soil. We ended up transporting a very large volume of material to the lower mainland of contaminated soil, and that transportation and disposal was more than half the cost of the entire cleanup, Madam Mayor. And I'd be pleased to answer any specific questions about the response.
Thank you for that information, and thanks, Mr. Watson, for your oversight in handling the cleanup as well. I'm very glad that we did diligently report and clean up right away, regardless of that very significant and upsetting cost. I think we did good work in making sure it was taken care of appropriately. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Somewhere, and I can't put my finger on it just at the second. I was of the understanding that there were valves on this tanker that were chained and locked, and those locks or those valves were broken open. Is there any kind of RCMP investigation on this? I see in the pictures that the tank's since been removed, but has the RCMP been involved in this? Just, I mean, if a crime has occurred, I mean, we can't be paying for everything.
The Director of Parks and Rec is, I think, prepared to speak to that.
So, Madam Mayor, the investigation with the RCMP is ongoing. Councillor Washington is correct in that there are numerous valves on the tank car, and there needs to be intention to have them open. So it wasn't a case of an environmental situation or an act of God that would have opened those valves. That said, it's uncertain at this point whether it was a malicious act or an accident. But the investigation is ongoing with the RCMP.
And who even accesses that? Like who uses that tank? It's for a train that, you know, we have not allowed to run for the last 2 years. So who would be out there using that bunker oil?
Madam Mayor, there's no nobody that we're aware of that would have a reason to interact with that tank. It had bunker oil in it that the number 7 now no longer uses because it's been converted to burn diesel. So that oil, there was no reason that we're aware of why anybody would interact with that tank.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think it was Winston Churchill who once said, never let a crisis go to waste. And we've got a crisis here. Somehow we have to, whether we write a letter, we talk to Gord Johns, the Canadian Heritage Minister is a fellow by the name of Stephen Gobol. He used to be with Greenpeace. He climbed the CN Tower protesting the Kyoto Protocol. If we go cap in hand to this guy to tell him the situation we're in, and we've got this, and I'll call it an albatross because I believe it is, that we just cannot continue to fund and ask for his assistance, I'd be curious to see him say, well, pound sand, fellas. This should be an opportunity to reach out and try to get some assistance from senior levels of government.
CAO.
Madam Mayor, I think we can certainly reach out and engage with senior government on that item, on that issue. It's not a new conversation here.
I think Councillor Corbeil is, I mean, the bigger issue here is again, just the, you know, costs that keep coming up and our inability to keep paying for it. And I say inability to keep paying, but I mean, it's our inability to progress other initiatives because Mclean Mill always ends up coming first. You know, we tried to put $400,000 in our budget to revamp our uptown district. And look what we went through for that. And yet we spend $500,000 on Mclean Mill every single year. This year, obviously, significantly more, probably 1.5 million with everything. We continue to put this ahead of other things. And I think that's Councillor Corbeil's point. And it's certainly mine as well. This Mclean Mill is stopping our community from progressing. It is absolutely an amazing piece of heritage, a very cool site, but we have Mclean Mill and we have the rest of our community that we've neglected because of it. Councillor Haggard. Sorry, you're muted, Councillor Haggard.
I did push the button, but it didn't work. It's very unfortunate that somebody did this on purpose in order, for whatever reason, for the city now has to deal with it. But it always seems like it's not Mclean Mill that is costing us, it's other groups that are out at Mclean Mill that are causing these issues. So we really need to tighten up on who's out there using it and why they have their equipment out there causing these issues. If that wasn't out there to begin with, it should have been stored by the people who own that and take care of it, then this wouldn't have happened in the first place.
I have to move rooms. I have children coming in. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Haggard. And yeah, it's an unfortunate reality for sure that we have continued to just have issue after issue. And you're right, it's not always Mclean Mill. It's always at Mclean Mill, unfortunately. Councillor Solda.
Just to be respectful here, Madam Mayor, we own the trains, and the train was the one that needed all this oil. So don't we own the tanker too? So it's our responsibility too, right? I mean, to be honest, am I wrong that we don't own all this stuff?
CAO, do we own the tanker?
Well, here's the rub, council, is that whether we own it overtly or put it there ourselves, we condone it being there. And I've not been able to find any paper trail to see who actually owns that tank car. It exists, it's on our property, it's put, there's oil in it that the city paid for. And the volunteers, the folks that have been interacting with there for decades have been doing so with city dollars and city support and condonation. And so, no, I don't think we should be throwing volunteers or well-intentioned citizens under the bus. But if this isn't a wake-up call for us to get our own house in order, then I don't know what would be. And this isn't the only situation where the city has assumed liability over things that are outside of our control, but for which we're responsible. And I hope that we can learn from this and go forward in a respectful way with the various groups that we work with to say we want to change our behavior and require them to change theirs as well. And I want to say, Madam Mayor, that nobody feels good about this. And since this event happened, the Industrial Heritage Society volunteers have been working tirelessly at Mclean Mill and at the Roundhouse. They're learning from this as well. And they've been cleaning up some of the things that have accumulated over the years. So they're demonstrating, I think, that they can learn from this, and I'm hoping that we do the same.
Madam Mayor, just to say that because the train had to have oil, and that's why that I think it was put there in the first place for many years. And to go back to what you were saying earlier, Madam Mayor, regarding projects, like I said, we have some pretty interesting, really good strategic stuff that we want to do in our community. But like you said, the money's being filtered into whatever at Mclean's Mill. And what are we willing to give up to keep doing what we're doing? You know, and that's what really bothers me. We're just giving it all to Mclean's Mill in some capacity. So thank you.
Yep, and it seems that no matter what we do and no matter how many positive steps we do take on oversight and making sure we are limiting operational budgets and moving in the right direction to reduce the subsidies, we continue to have situations like this come up. This is not the first one, it's not the second, it's not the third. There's always something coming up that is costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. A few years ago, it was the fire pump or something like that was $200,000 in December. Like there's always something. And I don't think I will support spending another dollar on this initiative. I literally am just done spending money on this initiative. And I appreciate the historic aspects of it and the value of it to our community, but we literally are putting it ahead of everything else that needs to be done in this community. We're getting further and further behind because we are putting this first. And now we're in a position where we're going to be draining a reserve to cover $1.25 million in oil spill. And maybe it's nobody's fault. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was on purpose, but at the end of the day, it is there because we chose to keep operating this site. I have questions about the insurance. I understand we have $100,000 cap on our environmental policy. That seems incredibly low to me. Environmental disasters are rarely under $100,000 to clean up. This being a great example. And obviously we heard from Ken Watson that it could have been a lot worse had the rain pattern have changed. I want to understand why we have a $100,000 cap. I understand we have a broker that handles our insurance needs. And, you know, were they aware of the type of activities that we had? It feels to me like we are not properly insured. $100,000 is a very low cap. Is this normal for municipalities? And if it's not normal for municipalities because they're not running trains, was our broker aware that we were running trains? I just feel like somewhere along the way, we were not covered or given the right advice where we should have been to properly manage our liability. I don't know who can comment on that.
Andrew, are you able to comment on the insurance?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll try to do my best with the history that we've had here, and obviously Mclean's Mill is a different exposure than most other municipalities would have as far as insurance risk. But I do know that Aon was aware of our operations at the mill. They would annually bring in our they would bring in the policy, and every year, they'd add, options for crime or pollution, etc. But with those, obviously, it comes additional costs. So, not being here at the time, I'm not sure what council was provided as far as information for these other additional policies. But within the last Aon comparison to MIA, they listed the opportunity to take a environmental policy for cleanup. And obviously with an environmentally policy, you would have to ensure that you had a good review of what your exposure is. So what we'd probably see with that is an in-depth review of all our exposures, whether if it's a tank out at Mclean's Mill or if we have a tank at City Works Yards. So we'd have to take a good inventory of what we needed to look at in order to get a policy in front of council to consider. So it's something that we've talked about internally about what we need to do, and I think we need to bring forward options. And I'm working with both MIA and Aon right now to look at environmental policy and what that could cost. But we have to do an inventory of what our exposure is. So we probably wouldn't have that when we bring forward the renewal in January, but we'll work towards having that in front of council at some point. But I don't know if that answers the question completely, Madam Mayor, but
I think it doesn't completely, but I'm not sure it's really answerable. It feels like somewhere along the way, we did not get the advice that we needed to in order to properly insure ourselves. $100,000 environmental limit is not adequate, obviously. And so I would like to understand in the future, this is, you don't need to answer this, but I would like to understand, was that an error of whoever's representing us on insurance, not taking the time to understand the type of activities that we were conducting, or does that type of policy not exist? Because it's the person who is representing us on our insurance purchase who is responsible for advising us on what type of liability and insurance needs we have. And I feel like there is a very clear gap here. So it could be that, that was a decision that the city made. I don't think that as a council, when we've gone through insurance processes, we've ever seen detailed breakdowns, but I think it would have been about 3 years ago now. So I might not be remembering exactly what we received, but I'm frustrated, as I'm sure staff and everyone else is, that we don't have better insurance coverage for this. And I want to make sure that obviously going forward we have that, but I'm also upset that we don't have it now, and I guess wanting to understand better why we don't have it. So that doesn't need to be answered today, and maybe you weren't here, so you might not even be able to get that information. But yeah, thank you. Councillor Solda.
So, Madam Mayor, I'm just getting a text now saying that they're blaming the Heritage Society for all this because we gave them that and they let them do it. But it's not the Heritage Society's fault, and we can't blame them. Like we have a septic problem, we have a dam problem, we have oil spill, and we have maintenance on the buildings, etc. And so you can't blame our volunteers. It's not their fault. And I really resent people when they say, let's blame somebody like our volunteers. That's not fair. And you know what? To a point, there's a covenant in the lease, $1 back to the mosaic. They can have it back if we're going that route. But I'm just saying, let's not put the blame on the Heritage Society. They were acting on behalf of us. They didn't open up the valve. We don't know who did, and we shouldn't be putting blame on them.
We don't know who did open up the valve.
Exactly.
And we don't know if it was intentional or if it was accidental. We don't know who used that tank regularly or did not. So you're right, we don't know. We don't know.
But we shouldn't be blaming the Heritage Society, and that's what the text was about.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, first of all, it's problematic for certainly for staff, Madam Mayor, to be responding in a meeting to inputs via text. But
it came up on my phone. Sorry, Madam Mayor, it just came up on my phone.
Thanks.
I didn't respond.
Secondly, if I said anything to blame with the Heritage or other volunteers, that wasn't my intention. My intention is to say the buck stops with the city. It's our site. We fund volunteers. We're the ones responsible for overseeing the response there. And if you read the supporting email to an earlier report, I had said to staff, let's learn from this. Let's take more control of Mclean Mill, of what's going on, what the volunteers are doing on site. And we've done that since then. There's more work to be done. So nobody here, certainly not me, not intending to blame the volunteers. This stops with us. We need to be responsible for the things that are under our purview.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Tim, could you just speak to the process that we are going through to assess our liabilities and any other liabilities that we might have in terms of equipment that doesn't belong to the city on our property that we're insuring?
Sure, Madam Mayor. Actually, I'd like to defer first to the Director of Parks, Rec and Heritage, whose staff are doing an internal review right now. And then if we could hear from the Director of Finance with his recommendations on what an external review might look like.
So, Madam Mayor, we're currently engaging a variety of third parties to obtain quotes to do an audit of all city facilities. So what we're looking at is twofold. First one is doing a complete audit of any third-party activity on city land. So on city-owned property, what those user groups are up to. And then the second component of that is in the future education. So we don't find ourselves in this situation any further. So we're hoping in the coming weeks that we'll have a presentation back to council with what those predicted costs as well as the plan for that audit might be.
Okay. Thank you. And as it was said earlier, I think that the most important thing here is that we learn from this and that going forward, regardless of how Mclean Mill operates in the future, that we don't end up in a situation like this as a municipality again. We know that this is likely not the only example of a potential liability that we have, and making sure that we're limiting those risks in the future will be very important. So thank you for that work. Councillor Paulson and then Councillor Corbeil.
I'm sitting here just a little stunned, and I got a little more than just a little bit of sticker shock on this. For myself, the 1.25 million, and maybe I'm very naive, is an exorbitant amount for a cleanup of that type. And I'd like to see for my own education so that we know what our liability is on these type of events. I'd like to see a breakdown of that bill or those costs if we could. Once again, doesn't have to be this week or next week, but I think that 1.25 million, we've got to see what that's composed of. Mr. Watson alluded to about $500,000 just to transport the soil away. And I guess I'm a little naive on the environmental cost of cleaning this kind of thing up. And the 1.25 million, I'm just sitting here just kind of dumbfounded.
Thank you. Ken, are you on to provide any details on that?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, I can provide detail about some of the costs that have been incurred to date, and I as well share Councillor Paulson's original viewpoint that how could it possibly cost this much, and having gone through it step by step, I can see how it did. The company that we retained to be the prime contractor, TerraWest, Their primary person on site was not surprised at this cost level. He said this is what these kind of events cost. Other people that I've spoken with in the industry have confirmed that yes, this is the kind of expense that they would have anticipated for such a response. So just to put some of it in perspective, we did retain TerraWest, and they had professional people on site for a month, a number of them. So the total bill for their work is going to be approaching $100,000. Coastal Bridge, which is a local construction company, took on the lion's share of the earth moving works, as well as the crane lifting and the trucking. They are on site as well for a full month. About 145,000 or so for them. There was a number of companies that have vacuum trucks that were brought to bear in an emergency. We got who we could get. The primary one being TerraPure, also a company that has a local outlet. TerraPure also took on the hauling and disposal of both the soil, which was over 2,000 tons. As well as the contaminated water, as well as sludge, which is sort of the oil that we could get that was not diluted significantly. All of those things had to be transported either to the Lower Mainland or to Southern Vancouver Island at considerable cost. And I mentioned that those costs are more than half the total that we incurred, and those were over $600,000 in costs just for that part. And Madam Mayor, there will be a post-spill report that's part of what we engaged TerraWest to undertake that will provide in very detail format the work that we undertook and why. There were a number of decision points along the way about what the right thing to do was at this point, and they will outline why we did what we did. And there will still be some continuing work to be done. We have put monitoring wells around the perimeter of the spill site. So we will be monitoring the groundwater in that area to verify that there's no remaining product in the ground.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In keeping with not letting a crisis go to waste, I would like to make a motion that we write to the Canadian Heritage Minister asking for financial assistance, not only for this crisis, but for going forward to keep this heritage site going.
I'll second that.
And if I could, I think it would be pertinent for us to review the original contract and the management plan. There's the little bit of looking I did. There's things like we were supposed to continue running a running sawmill. Well, that hasn't happened. Any changes were supposed to be signed off by the federal government. That hasn't happened. So there's a lot of discrepancies there that probably this minister hasn't got a clue about Mclean's Mill, likely doesn't know where Port Alberni is. So it'd be a good opportunity to explain the situation we're in. And as I said, he's very environmentally conscious. He may have, some assistance for us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that motion? That is to write a letter seeking financial support to the federal government. Okay, seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, carried. And any other questions or comments on this topic generally? Okay, would somebody like to, oh, Councillor Corbeil?
Just a question probably for Tim, is Gord Johns aware of much what has gone on there, Tim?
I do not know that, Madam Mayor. You might know better than I am. I'm not in regular contact with him.
Yeah, Gord and I have connected somewhat on Mclean Mill, and we have been trying to connect on it over the last couple of weeks. And we ended up connecting and we discussed housing instead. Yeah, I will connect with him again on this just to bring him up to date. And Gord's been a great advocate for us, trying to get more funding for the mill. So he will, I'm sure, want to support us in this. If we're writing to the federal government, we'll make sure we're working with him on that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move receipt of the information update?
Move receipt.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item number 12, Economic Development Manager status update on small business COVID-19 support measures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hard to be upbeat and Christmassy after that. This is a report summarizing our progress on initiatives that were designed to support the small business community through the pandemic. The measures were identified that we were proposing to take were identified to council back in May. The tally in the report that you have was based on early and mid-November stats. We've since done an update, and the community has invested a total of about $1.7 million in support of the small business community, with 89% of that coming from Community Futures. I'd have to say that I think on either a per capita basis or per small business basis, we're the best served community in the province. I'd like to commend our partners in these initiatives. Community Futures initiated a loan program. They established a consulting hive that has worked across the province. They secured funding for the 3 chambers in their area. They've completed work on our Choose Port Alberni website. Also, the report notes that a consultant that was hired by the City of Trail to review facade improvement programs across Canada concluded that the Port Alberni model was the best that they had seen. So they recommended to Trail to follow the approach that we've taken. The Chamber has been relentless in publishing newsletters, providing updates to the small business community. They've invested an enormous amount of time and energy and creativity in the Better Buy Port Alberni site, which is e-commerce and gift certificate. We're I think now at 34 or 35 businesses that are signed up on site, and there are 5 companies who are investing about $10,000 in gift certificates for their employees through that site. So I really would urge the business community, if you're not signed up on that site, please go ahead and do so. First 3 months are free, thanks to the city and the Chamber and WebMax, who are the developers of the site. And this is a perfect time for you to evaluate the effectiveness of that site. People are wanting to stay home, do their shopping from the comfort of their chair. It's raining out, snowing out, all those kinds of things. So it really is a great opportunity for the businesses to gauge the effectiveness of that program. The Port Authority is another organization that we've worked with, and they've led the way on the food pod at Clutha Haven Marina. The city has invested about $180,000 in these initiatives. I told council back in May that, or I asked for permission to basically invest $140,000 from the economic development budget. I think we're at 147,000 with the remainder of that coming from other city departments for things like making sure that we have shovel-ready projects to be applying for grants for. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we continue, could we just have a motion to continue our council meeting beyond 3 hours?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Washington, seconded by Councillor Clune. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, questions or comments? Councillor Haggard.
When you first presented that report a few months back, Pat, I did ask a lot of questions and I felt like I was a little bit hard on you, but I wasn't trying to be difficult. I was just wanting to ensure that there was a lot of support for the business community. But I just want to thank you for all your hard work. And I do know that you really do care about the business community. You have a very big heart and it is in the right place. And we really appreciate that hard work that you do. So apology and a compliment at the same time. But I do have one
no apology necessary. I actually, I think I remember saying to you at the time that you brought those issues up or concerns that I felt a bit like Tom Sawyer, and in that I was bringing Community Futures and the Chamber of Commerce and the Port Authority to the table, and subsequently we brought the Alberni Valley Employment Center. And as you will see from the report, the vast majority of the investment in the small community has been made by the other organizations, but I do consider myself as a bit of a choir a leader, a choir master in encouraging, inspiring, cajoling the other organizations. And as I said, they've been an absolutely phenomenal team to work with. And really, I do think that our small business community has been better served than any other small business community in the province. And it's not to say that this is over by a stretch. We did a survey of the small business community back in mid-October. At that time, 94% of those who did respond said that they thought they were optimistic that they could continue to operate through the provincial health officer orders. And that, of course, was prior to an increasingly strict regime that request that has been made of the small business community, restaurants and food services businesses in particular, but others as well. I suspect we are going to hear from others, and we're fortunate in having our MLA, who's now a minister, who has reached out to us and said, can you give us some feedback on some of the programs? So we have been doing that with the small businesses that have been willing to say, I have experience with this program or that program, and I'm happy to provide comment. And we're hoping that those will continue to increase measures just in the same way that our MP has worked with the federal government to, for example, make businesses that are renting space from the city eligible for programs that are coming under there. So as I said, it's not over. We're continuing to focus with our squad on the small business community, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. And please let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help support the initiative.
Yeah, thanks. And Pat, I'll just echo Deb's comments in that, you know, over the last few months, I've spoken with obviously many small business owners and just getting a sense of how they're doing. And I think our community has fared really well through this. I also think that, you know, the most difficult pieces of this are to come over the next few months for sure. So we have to be very mindful of that. But the consistent theme in what I've heard is we feel very well supported by the city. So, you know, many people have specifically mentioned you in that feedback, and obviously feeling really supported by, you know, all the other partners as well. So great job to you in that, because I literally have heard, and Pat Deacon has been so amazing so many times. So people really appreciate the support that your department is offering. And one piece of feedback that I want to give about provincial initiatives, if you are kind of reporting feedback to Josie's office, is there is a provincial grant available that is aimed at the hardest hit businesses, specifically topping up, making a larger amount available for hospitality, restaurant, and that type of part, what they deem the hardest hit businesses. And you have to be in business for 3 years prior to March to be eligible. And as you know, our community has seen a huge increase in small businesses open in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think we have a lot of businesses in our community that are being left with not just a reduced amount, but zero available to them because of that 3-year requirement. So I think that we're really missing the mark. And I think that's going to, it's a provincial program. It's I think the Small Business Recovery Fund. It's a grant available up to $40,000, but you have to have been open for 3 years. You have to have 3 years financials prior to March 2020. So I just think that's going to leave a lot of our local businesses, because we have seen such an increase in new businesses opening over the last few years. I think that's going to exempt a lot of them. And if we could provide that feedback, I think it would be helpful.
I will do that, Madam Mayor. Thank you. We've already provided a bit of feedback. The grant also, or the support also requires that you show loss of revenues in March and April. And a couple of our businesses have pointed out that they were fortunate to have orders for March and April, and it was after that that the revenues plummeted. Our MLA, actually, she reached out in conjunction with her minister's hat on, because another minister had asked for some feedback. And so we've provided that. We'll provide the other bit of feedback in terms of that. And you're quite right. I mean, we've seen a good number of businesses incorporated over the last 2 years.
For sure. Thank you. Are there other questions or comments for Pat? Okay. Would somebody like to move receipt of the report?
So moved.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and item 13 from the Manager of Community Safety, 3118 3rd Avenue, the Harborview Apartments, a progress report.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. The report before Council today is to provide a status update regarding the work that has been carried out at 3118 3rd Avenue in relation to Council's remedial action order, and to obtain Council's support in foregoing enforcement consideration at this time. On September 14th, Council resolved remedial action requirements for 3118 3rd Avenue. On October 14th, Council extended the time for the property owner to address the requirement by an additional 30 days. On November 23rd, Council resolved that in the absence of progress being made, that Council returned to an in-camera meeting to consider Council's next steps in addressing the property located at 3118 3rd Avenue. On December 9th, staff attended on site to review and inspect the actions that have taken place since council's order. This report outlines the actions taken by the property owner, Folded Hills Farm, and management. And while a few items are still outstanding, the property owners and managers continue to make improvements in bringing the property into compliance without displacing current tenants. In light of the work that has been done and their continued efforts, council is being asked to consider the recommendation identified in this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from council? Councillor Paulson.
The building shows some significant external improvements. Certainly, they replaced all the windows. Looks like most of the doors are done. If we're going to refrain from additional enforcement, I just want to make sure there's still some outstanding items there, and I want to make sure that the owner is held accountable to make sure that those are done in a timely manner. And I'm not sure if we have the ability to put kind of a timeline down the road for the project to be complete.
Madam Mayor, I actually have a meeting later this week with the property owner to discuss the outstanding items and hopefully do a more thorough inspection. So maybe I can bring an updated report to you in January.
That would be great. I think I think Councillor Paulson is, reflecting the concerns that we're all seeing, and thinking there's absolutely some improvements that have been made, but we've seen this happen before, and we've seen these similar improvements happen before, and we've ended up right back in the same spot. So I think we want to ensure that the pressure stays on and that we do see, this through to completion, and then we continue monitoring and making sure that that it doesn't slip back into disrepair as it did. The state that it was in was, just completely unacceptable, and we want to make sure we don't get back to that point. And not only that, but I think we need the property owner to know that we expect a significantly higher standard, not just the absolute minimum. Are there any other questions from council? Councillor Solda.
Yeah, my biggest thing was the monitoring too, and I would like to see us do, like, I don't know if we legally can do 3 months monitoring after January, just to keep, because what we see on the outside doesn't mean what's on the inside. So I would like to keep that looked at.
Thank you. Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion that's attached?
Sure. I'll move, Madam Mayor, that the council directs staff to refrain from considering additional enforcement measures so long as significant and appropriate progress continues to be made on the part of the property owner managers on completing the outstanding remedial action requirements as ordered by council at its meeting held September 14th, 2020. Further, that council will revisit this matter at a regular meeting on January 11th, 2020 to ensure remedial action requirements are continuing to be met.
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and on to bylaws. Item G1 from the Director of Finance, amendment to the 5-year financial plan 2020 to 2024, bylaw number 5003-1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So annually, Council has the ability to amend the 5-year financial plan at any time. Council has made resolutions throughout the year to amend the financial plan, and what you see today before you is just a consolidation of all those amendments that were made throughout the year. With the consolidated 5-year financial plan amendment, we will make these amendments and make the 5-year financial plan reflect what is more close to what council has made the changes for over this past year. So with that, we've provided you the bylaw to make the amendments for the 2020-2024 5-year financial plan.
Thank you. Are there questions from council? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Corbeil, would you like to read the motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the 5-year financial plan 2020 to 2024 amendment bylaw number 5003-01 be introduced and read a first time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
2, that 5-year financial plan 2020-2024 amendment bylaw number 5003-01 be read a second time.
Second.
Thank you. And seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried.
That 5-year financial plan 2020 to 2024 amendment bylaw number 5003-01 be read a third time.
Second.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried.
And lastly, that 5-year financial plan 2020-2024 amendment bylaw number 5003-01 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and the corporate officer, and numbered 5003-01.
Second.
Thank you. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on to correspondence for action, we have a few items here. The first one is a letter dated November 4th, 2020 from the City of Port Moody requesting that council support the need for flood risk mitigation by advocating for provincial government grants and funding. Are there any questions on this one? Okay. We often get letters like this asking, to advocate to the provincial government, and we typically do that through UBCM and other avenues. Would somebody like to move receipt?
Move receipt.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Solda. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And item number 2, a letter from Randy Reifer dated December 2nd, 2020, requesting council provide information related to the oil spill at the Mclean Mill National Historic Site. So most of this has been answered, and I believe there will be a final report at some point. CAO?
Madam Mayor, I can speak to those specifically if you like. The first one, environmental consulting report, that will be coming at a later date. The second one, the cost of cleanup, we just spoke to earlier in this meeting. The third one, cost of removal of another oil tank. I'm not aware if that work was undertaken or if so, what the cost was. So we'll bring that information at a subsequent meeting. And insurance claim, I believe we've discussed that thoroughly here as well. So I think all of them have been resolved or will be, the information will come to a subsequent meeting of council.
Thank you. Councillor Solda, did you have a question?
No, Madam Mayor, well, sort of. Are we going to send him a little note explaining all that to him in case he's not watching it? I mean, I'm sure it'll be all over the town, but the city, but we should be sending him a response back.
We respond to these letters, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Tim, will part of the environmental report give us information on the sampling that's been done?
There should be testing and results there as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to receive?
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And item number 3, an email dated November 18th, 2020 from Chris Alberni urging council to submit a resolution to the upcoming 2021 Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Conference requesting the province implement a guaranteed livable universal basic income for all British Columbians. Any questions or comments on this one? So council, I would like us to have, I think this is a big issue, and I think that it's something we can have more conversation about. I also think we should have a conversation about if we want to submit resolutions to AVICC this year and what our strategic priorities are. CAO, are you, or maybe the Twyla, are you aware of when the deadline to submit to AVICC is?
Madam Mayor, I'll defer over to the Director of Corporate Services.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, typically the deadline is February, and AVICC usually sends out reminders in early January, but knowing that this is an item, we will search that out and bring it forward early January, so council has the opportunity to consider any formal resolutions.
Thank you. When I read through this, I was interested to see the request that Chris was asking for anyways, to be to the provincial government rather than the federal government, especially following CERB, of course, being a federal program. Anyways, I think it's worth discussing. I absolutely agree with the comments made earlier today that especially in a community like Port Alberni, where we have the highest child poverty rate in the province and one of the highest poverty rates, this would have a significant impact on lifting a lot of people in our community who are struggling out of poverty. So I think that, as a community, we would be well positioned to advocate for an initiative like this. But I think that it requires a greater council discussion of whether, at the very least, our council is even supportive of an initiative like this, because I know that, everybody has different thoughts and feelings on it. That said, I think that if we wanted to, we would be a good advocate for this because of the issues that exist in our community. So we can certainly discuss it today. I would also suggest that we bring this back to our future discussion about possible other AVICC resolutions to come forward. Councillor Solda?
I would agree with you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to have a discussion on it, and I think we need to have more background on it so we have information that we can talk about and explain to the AVICC. Not everybody knows about it, so let's have that discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Poon?
Yeah, I think I'm supportive of it, but I think I need more information and like Councillor Solda says, more background. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so let's receive this for now, and let's add to either our first or second agenda in January a conversation about AVICC resolutions, and let's make sure we include this as a part of that discussion, if council's okay with that.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you. And is there a seconder? Seconded. Seeing no final comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And no proclamation, so we'll move on to correspondence for information. City Clerk.
Yes, just to remind you of Mr. Smith's late item H4, and that was his letter regarding the debt.
Thank you. Are you able to summarize that for us, just in case not everybody has had an opportunity?
Oh, certainly, Madam Mayor. So he's reflecting about past conversation with the Director of Finance, and specifically his question at the April 16th budget meeting of Council. The city's debenture debt was indicated to be $10 million at the end of 2018. $10.2 million of extra debt was added recently to pay for the sewage lagoon upgrades. Add in the estimated debt servicing costs for the previous, plus the city's current portion of airport debt liability of $5.7 million. And the city has at least $30 million of estimated debt, plus debt servicing liability expenses, all of which has to be paid down over the next 30 years. Subject to the vagaries of interest rates and other influences which may impact debt servicing expenses in the future, what is the combined amount of current debt and estimated debt servicing costs the city is faced with paying over the next 3 decades?
Thank you. So I think we did include this a bit in the conversation that we had around the debt report. My opinion, I really understand the point that Roland is getting at here. What is the realistic amount of debt that we are repaying over the next 30 years? The airport is absolutely included in that, and the expected debt for the sewage lagoon is absolutely included in that as well. I think that was potentially outside of the scope of the report that we asked for as a council, but I think it's recognized in terms of money that needs to be repaid that we will absolutely be repaying. Are there any other comments on that? Okay, would somebody like to move receipt?
So,
thank you, and seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on to correspondence for information, City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have correspondence from the District of Saanich requesting the Minister of Indigenous Services proceed with royal assent of Bill C5 for recognition of September 30th as a statutory national holiday for truth and reconciliation. You have correspondence from the Vancouver Island Regional Library advising that all branches are open and ready to serve customers safely, having adjusted their services in accordance with public health measures. We have correspondence from the municipality of North Cowichan responding to COVID-19 and uptick increase. They wrote to Premier John Horgan encouraging the government to implement a mandatory 14-day quarantine for those arriving on Vancouver Island. We have minutes from the Alberni Valley Museum and Heritage Commission held November 4th. We have correspondence from the City of Vernon, again addressed to the Premier, requesting their support for and looking for other support for universal no-cost access to all prescription contraception available in BC. We have correspondence from Randy Fraser, and he's expressing concerns regarding infrastructure costs and encouraging council to allocate the $2 million dividend from the Alberni Valley Community Forest to the pool replacement. We have correspondence from the Alberni Valley Museum and Heritage Commission providing their support for the exclusion of the Mclean Mill National Historical Site from the Agricultural Land Reserve. And we have correspondence from Mr. Roland Smith speaking to concerns regarding the Mclean Mill National Historic Site.
Thank you.
And, oh, sorry, pardon me. Lastly, we have, I had to flip the page, Canadian Mental Health Association, and that was the letter that was signed by yourself, Mayor Minions, supporting CMHA-PA in their proposal to the BC Housing request for proposals for new rental housing units.
Thank you. Are there any items there that councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In Mr. Fraser's letter, he alluded to some sort of research that's going on with the regional district and the city regarding the future of the pools. So I guess I'm asking you folks that are part of the regional district, has anything come of that?
No, so all of council is included in that process, and we haven't done anything on it for a while. CAO possibly could remind us of where we're at in that. I'm not sure if our conversations were slowed due to COVID.
Madam Mayor, you're correct that all of council has been involved in those discussions, and off the top of my head, I cannot recall what the next steps are or where we were at in that process.
I know, of course, that we have the city and ACRD have a joint contractor working on facilitating our conversations. I'm unclear on whether or not we had another meeting scheduled and that was delayed due to COVID. Councillor Haggard.
I was just going to add to the conversation that the ACRD just completed their strategic plan, and looking at a new aquatic center is included in that strategic plan. So I would assume that some action would be taken in the next while.
And that Councillor Haggard and I worked very hard to have that included in the strategic plan. Thank you. Any other items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Solda.
Just to go back to Randy Fraser's letter, since he worked for the city for many, many, many years and has retired. In one part of his letter, he talked about long ago, a program was set up which called for putting a percentage of parks revenue into the Parks Reserve Fund. This money was to be used for repairs or replacement for major parks and recreation facilities, such as a pool, not for things, as he mentions, the clock tower and the city facility. All too often, reserve funds are rated to pay for shiny up projects. And I had mentioned that we had talked about that. This was in 2007 when that particular strategic plan for the pool was put out, and it was going to be about $20 million to redo a pool. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more now, but some of that money, that's when I had mentioned that we needed to have money in that fund to be to have a plan ready for any grants and stuff like that. And that's exactly, Randy confirmed that, reading that. And that's what I had said in the past. That's why we put money away. I just wanted to stress that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we have not dipped into that fund for shiny new projects. In fact, we have explicitly held off on doing that. So that fund is, the Parks and Recreation Reserve is intact. And yeah, we've been very firm on not dipping into it unnecessarily. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Poon.
Oh, sorry. Move receipt items 1 through 9.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Washington. Seeing no more comments, all in favor? Carried. And moving on to report from in camera. City Clerk, would you like to summarize this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so just to speak to the city's advertisement soliciting volunteers to serve on the community improvement program. 3 submissions were received and council has elected to obviously proceed with one of those. So for 2021, that council authorized the release of the names of the individual who has been appointed to the community investment program, which stems from their in-camera meeting held earlier today, and that Ryan Hart be appointed to the Community Investment Program Committee for a 1-year term.
Thank you. And moving on then to council reports. Are there any items councillors would like to highlight? Okay. Seeing none. New business. Oh, sorry, I guess we could move receipt of council reports.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Washington. All in favor? Carried. And are there any items to bring forward for new business? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, as we know, T-shirts had an election and they're still having sort of a tie-off election. Maybe we could send a letter of congratulations and thank the other board members.
Thank you. Yes, I have sent a personal note, and we should send a formal congratulations on behalf of council, as well as a thank you to those members of Sechok Council who were not re-elected or did not run again for their service. I would suggest we wait until their next election, which I think is on the 19th, for the tiebreaker. That way they'll have a full council in place, but absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items? Councillors, oh. Go ahead.
One
Councillor.
more thing. Merry Christmas to everybody, because we won't have another meeting with the public. I think this is our last one till January, isn't it, Madam Mayor?
It is, yes, thank you. Okay. So we will move on to question period. City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have 2 submissions, one from Mr. Graham Hughes, who has submitted a question to ask who he should submit a claim for the replacement of his MacBook, as he is unclear as who that should go to or the process. And we have another question from Mr. John Adams, who resides on Batty Road, and he is stating he has recently noticed extensive cleanup happening on 2 properties directly adjacent to Mclean Mill. Are these or will these activities be funded by the city, specifically the barn area and west of the new campsite?
Okay. Is the CAO or City Clerk available to answer either of those questions?
I can address Mr. Hughes. He can submit a claim form that the city has available on the city's website, or we can certainly email him a copy of the claim form for his completion directly.
Thank you. And CAO, are you able to speak to the questions from Mr. Adams?
Madam Mayor, we can bring our report to council at your next meeting on that.
Thank you. That would be great. Okay. With that, would somebody like to move adjournment?
Move adjournment.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor. Councillor Paulson already has his hand up. He's pre-voting. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.